Hi everybody. Before we start the story, please click the like button and subscribe to our channel. Also, tell us in the comments where you are watching from and what time it is. If you do that, YouTube will keep showing you more stories like this one. Okay, let's start now. The blood on the bathroom ceiling was still wet when Marcus arrived at the Fairbanks Airbnb at 11:43 p.m., not dripping, but glistening under the fluorescent light, fresh enough that when he touched it stupidly, reflexively it smeared warm across his fingertip. The listing had 5 stars, 47 reviews. Every single one mentioned how clean it was. Marcus had flown in from Seattle for a 2-week contract job, installing fiber optic cables across the Northern Territories. The Airbnb was cheaper than hotels, and the photos showed a cozy cabin-style apartment on the outskirts of town, surrounded by black spruce and silence. The kind of place where you could actually sleep after 16-hour days in the frozen dark. The host, a woman named Patricia, had left the key in a lockbox by the door with a code she'd texted him. No greeting, no welcome basket, just the code and a message. Make yourself at home. He'd made it through the living room, noting the wood stove, the worn couch, the stack of Alaskan wildlife magazines before he needed to piss. That's when he saw the bathroom. The blood wasn't just on the ceiling, it was splattered across the mirror in a pattern that looked almost deliberate, like someone had flicked a paintbrush loaded with crimson. Droplets covered the sink basin. A single bloody handprint marked the shower curtain, fingers spread wide, pressed there with enough force to leave the fabric wrinkled. His phone had 1 bar of service. He called Patricia. It rang 9 times before going to voicemail. The Airbnb app showed her as active 2 hours ago, but his messages sat unread. Marcus stood in the small bathroom doorway, suitcase still by the front door, and tried to think rationally. Maybe it was paint, some kind of weird art project, but paint didn't have that copper smell, thick and organic in the cold air. He should leave, drive back to town, find a hotel, report this to someone. But it was pushing midnight. He'd been awake for 21 hours, and Fairbanks in January offered limited options at this hour. The rest of the apartment looked normal, spotless, even. Bed made with hospital corners, kitchen clean enough to eat off the floor, just the bathroom, just the blood. Marcus made a decision he'd regret for the rest of his life. He closed the bathroom door, wedged a chair under the handle from the outside, and decided to deal with it in the morning. He'd sleep a few hours, confront Patricia at a reasonable time, maybe get a refund and relocate. The bed was comfortable. The heating worked. He could hear the wind screaming through the spruce trees outside, that particular Alaskan sound like the earth itself was howling. He lasted 45 minutes before the sound started. Footsteps in the bathroom. Slow, deliberate pacing. 7 steps one direction. Pause. 7 steps back. The chair he'd wedged under the door handle scraped slightly with each turn, like something was testing its resistance. Marcus lay frozen in bed, staring at the ceiling, telling himself it was pipes, old building settling, the wind creating auditory illusions. But pipes didn't breathe. He could hear breathing now, deep and wet, like someone drowning in slow motion. At 1:17 a.m., the bathroom door opened. He heard it clearly, the chair clattering aside, the hinges creaking, footsteps moving from tile to hardwood. Marcus had locked the bedroom door, but that meant nothing now. He could see the shadow under his door, blocking the light from the living room. 2 feet, standing perfectly still, waiting. Patricia, his voice cracked. Is someone there? The shadow shifted. The doorknob turned slowly, testing. Locked. The knob rattled harder, then stopped. For 3 full minutes, nothing. Marcus held his breath until his lungs screamed. Then the footsteps retreated, moving back toward the bathroom, and the door closed again. The chair scraped back into position. He didn't sleep. At 5:30 a.m., when the first gray light started filtering through the windows, he packed his bag in 4 minutes flat and headed for the front door. He had to pass the bathroom. The chair was gone. The door stood open 6 inches. Inside, the bathroom was pristine. No blood on the ceiling, no handprint on the shower curtain. The mirror gleamed, spotless. Even the copper smell had vanished, replaced by lemon cleaning solution. Marcus ran to his rental car. His hands shook so badly, he dropped the keys twice in the snow. As he started the engine, his phone buzzed. A message from Patricia. "Hope you slept well. Just for your information, the previous guest left some items. If you see a black duffel bag, don't open it. I'll collect it tomorrow." Thanks. There was no duffel bag in the apartment. He checked every room in his panic to leave. But as he pulled out of the driveway, headlights illuminating the cabin's exterior, he saw it, sitting on the front porch where it definitely hadn't been when he arrived. Black canvas, bulging with something heavy. A dark stain had soaked through the bottom, melting the snow beneath it into pink slush. Marcus drove straight to the police station, filed a report, gave them the address, described everything. The officer, a tired-looking man named Kowalski, took notes with increasing interest. When Marcus finished, Kowalski asked him to repeat the address. Marcus did. The officer's expression changed. "That's interesting," Kowalski said slowly. "We had a missing person report filed 2 days ago. Woman named Jennifer Harding checked into that exact Airbnb on January 6th. Never checked out. Never made it to her job interview in Anchorage. Host claimed she'd left on schedule, taken all her belongings. We searched the property. Nothing unusual. There's a bag on the porch right now," Marcus said. "Black duffel. Something in it. Something that's bleeding." They went together, Kowalski and a younger officer named Chen. Marcus waited in the patrol car while they approached the cabin with flashlights, though dawn was breaking properly now, turning the sky that particular Alaskan purple-gray. He watched them search the porch, then the perimeter. After 15 minutes, Kowalski returned alone. "No bag," he said. "Porch is clean. We'll need to get a warrant to search inside again, but..." He paused. "You said you saw blood in the bathroom last night, on the ceiling." "Yes, and it was gone this morning. Blood spatter on ceilings usually means arterial spray. Someone got hurt badly, or worse, but blood doesn't just vanish." Kowalski rubbed his face. The previous guest, Jennifer Harding, her credit card, was last used at a gas station 40 miles south of here, heading toward Anchorage. Surveillance footage showed a woman matching her description, pumping gas at 3 a.m. on January 8th. Alone, smiling. "That doesn't make sense." "No," Kowalski agreed. "It doesn't, because her car was found abandoned on the park's highway 2 days later. Empty. Keys in the ignition. And here's the thing that bothered me then, and bothers me more now: the driver's seat was covered in blood. Not a little. Enough that someone should have been dead or dying. But the footage showed her fine. More than fine. She looked happy. Marcus felt cold that had nothing to do with the temperature. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I don't know what happened in that Airbnb, but you're not the first person to report strange things. 3 months ago, we had a guy claim he saw someone in the walls, said there were gaps in the wood paneling, and someone was watching him from inside the structure. We investigated. No gaps. Solid construction, but he was so shaken he drove his rental car into a ditch, trying to leave in the dark. Broke his collarbone." Kowalski looked back at the cabin. 6 months before that, a couple reported hearing a woman crying in the bathroom all night. They assumed it was domestic violence in a neighboring unit, but there are no neighbors. Nearest house is 4 miles away. Why is it still listed? Why hasn't anyone shut it down? No evidence of criminal activity. Patricia checks out real person, pays taxes, maintains the property, and most guests report nothing. They have pleasant stays, leave good reviews. It's random. 1 in every 8 or 9 guests experiences something. Kowalski handed Marcus a card. "We'll investigate further. I'll need you to stay in the area for a few days, in case we have questions." Marcus checked into a Holiday Inn Express, paid out of pocket. He didn't care. That night, lying in a generic hotel room that smelled like industrial detergent, he tried to rationalize it. Stress, sleep deprivation, carbon monoxide maybe. But rationalization died when his phone buzzed at 11:43 p.m., the exact time he'd arrived at the Airbnb the night before. A text from Patricia. "I see you left early. Very rude not to communicate. You'll be charged for the full stay. Also, you forgot something in the bathroom. I'll mail it to you. He hadn't forgotten anything. Hadn't even used the bathroom after that first horrible discovery. He blocked her number, hands shaking. Tried to sleep. Couldn't. At 1:17 a.m., the exact time the bathroom door had opened, someone knocked on his hotel room door. 3 slow, deliberate knocks. Marcus looked through the peephole. The hallway was empty. He waited. Another knock, harder this time, rattling the frame. Still nothing visible through the peephole. On the 4th knock, he called the front desk. Security came, found no one. Checked the hallway cameras. The footage showed his door, undisturbed, for the entire hour. No one had approached it, but something had been there. He knew it like he knew his own name. The package arrived 6 days later, forwarded from his Seattle address to the job site. Brown paper, no return address, postmarked from Fairbanks, on the day after he'd stayed at the Airbnb. Marcus opened it in front of his coworkers during lunch break, thinking it might be something innocuous, a forgotten phone charger, or it was a hairbrush. The handle was carved wood, old-fashioned, the kind you might find in an antique store. Tangled in the bristles was long blonde hair, so much of it that the brush was essentially useless. But that wasn't what made Marcus drop it. What made him drop it was that the hair was still attached to something. Small pieces of scalp clung to several strands, pink and withered, and at the base of the bristles, where the wood met metal, something dark and crusted flaked off when the brush hit the ground. His supervisor made him report it. They called the Alaska State Troopers, who contacted Kowalski. The hair went to a lab. DNA analysis took 3 weeks. When the results came back, Kowalski called Marcus personally. The hair belongs to Jennifer Harding, the missing woman, and 2 other people we haven't identified yet. Kowalski's voice sounded hollow over the phone. We got a warrant. Searched the Airbnb top to bottom. Found nothing. No blood, no evidence of violence. Says she's never seen that hairbrush before. Where is she finding guests? Marcus asked. Who keeps booking this place? That's the thing. We checked. The listing is still active, still getting bookings. Someone checked in yesterday. Marcus felt his stomach drop. We tried, called the guest. He said everything's fine. Quiet, peaceful, exactly what he needed. Kowalski paused. He did mention one weird thing, though. Said there was a bathroom chair propped under the door handle when he arrived, like the previous guest had locked themselves in. Marcus never went back to Alaska. Quit the contract job, paid the penalty fee, and returned to Seattle. But the dream started 2 months later, always the same. He's back in that cabin, lying in bed, watching the shadow under the bathroom door, watching the doorknob turn. But in the dreams, he doesn't stay quiet. He calls out, asks who's there, and something answers. It says, then the door opens, and Marcus sees what Patricia keeps leaving for people to find. What leaves blood on ceilings and handprints on shower curtains and hair and brushes mailed to forwarding addresses. He sees why 1 in 9 guests experiences something while the others sleep peacefully, unaware. Because some guests check out, but the previous guest never does. The previous guest is always there, always waiting in the bathroom with wet footsteps and drowning breath, looking for someone to take their place. Marcus wakes up then. Always wakes up right before he sees the face. But the relief of waking never lasts. Because every single time his bathroom door is open, just 6 inches, exactly how he left it in the Airbnb. Even though he knows, absolutely knows, he closed it before going to bed. And sometimes, when the apartment is very quiet, he hears 7 footsteps in the bathroom, pacing, waiting. Patient as winter in Alaska, dark and cold and permanent. The thermostat read -73 degrees when Diane woke up, which was impossible because she was still alive. The Airbnb's digital display glowed an angry red in the darkness of the Alaskan bedroom, and her breath clouded the air so thickly she could barely see the numbers. Her phone said it was 2:47 a.m., and the actual outside temperature was -19, cold for Nome in February, but survivable. -73 was death in minutes. She'd booked the place because it advertised extreme cold weather testing in the description, a novelty for her documentary on climate adaptation. The host, a man named Victor, rented out a modified research cabin where scientists supposedly tested Arctic survival gear. The heating system could simulate various temperatures, he'd explained via message. For the full Alaska experience, he'd written, most guests try -40. Very authentic. Diane was buried under 4 blankets, wearing thermal underwear, a fleece jacket, and wool socks. She could feel the cold anyway, pressing against her skin like a physical weight. The exposed skin of her face had gone numb. When she flexed her fingers, they moved slowly, stiffly. Frostbite slow. She reached for her phone to call Victor, but her hands wouldn't cooperate properly. The phone slipped, clattered to the floor, skittered under the bed. She had to get to the thermostat, had to turn the temperature up. The device was mounted on the wall, 15 feet from the bed, next to the door. Might as well have been 15 miles. Every movement felt like pushing through concrete. The cold had weight here. Substance. It grabbed at her limbs as she swung her legs out of bed. Her feet hit the floor and she screamed. The hardwood was so cold it burned. Actual burning sensation, like touching a hot stove, except inverse. Ice fire. She jerked her feet up, gasping, and saw that the floor where she'd touched had crystallized. Frost spread from the 2 footprints in fractal patterns, growing as she watched. The wood grain disappeared under a layer of white ice that crackled and expanded, crawling toward the walls. Diane grabbed a blanket, wrapped it around her feet, and tried again. Better. The cold hurt everywhere now, a deep ache in her bones, but she could move. She shuffled toward the thermostat, blanket-wrapped feet sliding on the increasingly icy floor. Every breath hurt her lungs. The moisture in her nose was freezing. The thermostat's screen showed -81 degrees. It had dropped 8 degrees in the time it took her to cross the room. That wasn't how thermostats worked. Even in extreme cold simulation, there was a limit. Safety protocols. But the number kept changing as she stared at it. -82, -83. The device was counting down, and with each degree drop, the cold intensified. She jabbed at the controls with numb fingers. The screen responded, showing a menu, but none of the buttons did what they should. Increase temperature. Made it drop faster. System off changed nothing. Emergency heat triggered a message that made her blood, still liquid, somehow run colder than the air around her. Unable to comply. Freeze protocol active. Time remaining. 4 hours, 13 minutes. Freeze protocol. What the hell was freeze protocol? Diane tried the door, locked from the outside. She rattled the handle, threw her shoulder against it, but it was solid metal, industrial grade. The windows were double-paned, designed to withstand Arctic conditions, and covered with metal shutters that had closed at some point during the night. She hadn't heard them close. The cabin had become a freezer, and she was the meat inside. Her documentary equipment was in the living room, camera, laptop, satellite phone. But the bedroom door opened inward, and there was something wrong with it now. Ice had formed in the jamb, sealing it partially shut. She could see through the crack, maybe 4 inches, into the dark living room beyond. Her breath created clouds that froze instantly into tiny ice crystals, falling to the floor like snow. "Victor!" Her voice cracked. "Victor, something's wrong with your system." No response. The cabin was absolutely silent except for a new sound she was just starting to notice, a creaking, groaning noise coming from everywhere at once. The walls, the ceiling, the floor. The entire structure was contracting as the temperature plummeted, wood and metal shrinking, nails popping, joints separating. -94 degrees. Diane's eyelashes were freezing together. She had to consciously force her eyes open wider to keep them from sealing shut. The exposed skin of her face felt rigid, like leather left in the sun too long. When she touched her cheek, it didn't feel like flesh anymore. It felt like plastic. She wedged her fingers into the door crack and pulled. The ice resisted, then shattered. The door opened 6 more inches before stopping. She squeezed her face to the opening and looked. A body lay against the door, frozen solid. A woman, dark hair, wearing pajamas similar to Diane's. Her skin was blue-white, eyes open and frosted over like marbles, mouth frozen in an O of surprise. She'd been trying to get into the bedroom when she died. Diane jerked back, slammed into the thermostat. The impact jarred the device, and the screen flickered. For a moment, the display changed, showing not temperature but text. Subject 7, Trial 4. Monitoring baseline freeze response. Previous trials. 6 fatalities. Adjusting parameters. Subject 7. There had been 6 others. 6 people who died in this cabin. Died freezing while a system monitored them, adjusted parameters, refined whatever this was. Some kind of experiment. Not a thermostat malfunction. Intentional. Diane's mind felt sluggish, thoughts moving through frozen syrup. She had maybe 2 hours before the cold killed her. Maybe less. The body outside the door was a previous guest, someone like her who'd thought they were renting a quirky Airbnb and instead became subject 1 or 2 or 3. The thermostat screen flickered again. Subject 7 mobility, decreased. Cognitive function, declining. Survival instinct, elevated. Proceed to phase 2. A new sound filled the cabin. Fans. Industrial strength fans in the walls, pumping even colder air into the space. Negative 107 degrees. The blanket around Diane's feet had frozen, stiff, useless. When she looked down, she saw that her toes had turned black under the wool socks. Frostbite, rapid and severe. She couldn't feel them anymore. She had one chance, the window. Even with metal shutters, there had to be a release mechanism. She stumbled across the room, each step agony, and found the window's edge. The shutters were controlled electronically, but there was a manual override, a small lever recessed into the wall. She pulled it. Nothing happened. She pulled harder. The lever snapped off in her hand, brittle from the cold. Behind the lever was a keyhole. Of course, manual override required a key. Where would Victor keep a key? She tried to think, but her thoughts were fragmenting, scattering like the ice crystals that now filled the air so thickly she could barely see across the room. The dresser. She ransacked it, throwing frozen clothes aside. Nothing. The nightstand. Empty, except for a Bible, its pages frozen together into a solid block. Under the bed, she had to lie down on the burning cold floor to look nothing but her phone. Screen cracked from the fall. Wait, her phone. She grabbed it, fingers barely responding. The screen was damaged, but it still worked. No service. She'd known there'd be no service. Victor had mentioned it. Remote location, satellite phone provided in living room for emergencies, but phones had other functions. She opened the camera app, set it to video, and hit record. If she was going to die, and the black creeping up her limbs suggested she was someone needed to know what happened. My name is Diane Kowalski. It's February 19th, 2024. I'm in a cabin outside Nome, Alaska. Airbnb listing number. She recited the booking number from memory. The host is Victor Krasnov. This isn't a malfunction. It's intentional. He's killing people, testing how long they survive. There's a body outside my door. A woman. I'm number 7. The thermostat showed negative 123 degrees. Temperature at which carbon dioxide freezes. Temperature that didn't exist naturally on Earth outside of Antarctica's depths. Diane continued talking to the camera, words slurring, until her jaw muscles wouldn't move anymore. She lay down on the bed because standing had become impossible. The cold was inside her now, replacing her blood with ice, her thoughts with static. Through dimming vision, she watched the thermostat count down. At negative 148 degrees, her heart stopped beating. The muscles simply froze, mid-contraction, unable to pump blood that had crystallized in her veins. She was still conscious. Somehow. Still aware. The human body, she thought distantly, could survive incredible things for brief moments. The brain held on, using final reserves of oxygen, while everything else shut down. The bedroom door opened fully. The frozen woman's body had been moved aside. Victor stood in the doorway, wearing an Arctic survival suit, face mask, and insulated gloves. He held a tablet that glowed with data: heart rate, brain activity, core temperature. All of it declining, but not dead. Not quite yet. "Subject 7, he said, voice muffled by the mask. "Survival time, 4 hours, 52 minutes. New record. Excellent." He made notes on the tablet. "Cognitive preservation at extreme temperatures better than expected. Subject remained conscious 17 minutes past cardiac arrest. Remarkable." Diane tried to speak. Couldn't. Her tongue was frozen to the roof of her mouth. "You're wondering why," Victor said, crouching beside the bed. "Research. Cryonics. How long can human consciousness persist in extreme cold? Previous subjects died too quickly. Panic. Thrashing. Wasted energy. But you." He smiled behind the mask. "You stayed calm, conserved warmth, tried to problem solve. Perfect data." He reached out and touched her forehead. Even through his insulated gloves, he could feel the cold radiating from her. "You'll be preserved beautifully at this temperature. I'll revive you in 3 months, see if the memories persist. If consciousness survives flash freezing and slow thawing. You're contributing to science, Miss Kowalski. Your death has meaning." Diane's final thought, the last electrical spark in her freezing brain, was that she'd left the camera recording. Phone still propped against the wall, red light blinking. Victor hadn't noticed it in the darkness and frost. The camera that would capture him checking her vital signs, speaking about revival experiments, casually discussing 7 murders disguised as thermostat malfunctions. Then the last spark died, and Diane's consciousness went dark. 3 months later, when Alaska State Troopers finally investigated after Diane's family reported her missing, they found the cabin abandoned. Victor was gone. The thermostat had been removed from the wall, leaving only wires. But in the bedroom, still propped against the wall, they found a phone encased in ice. The ice had preserved it perfectly, and when they thawed it carefully in the crime lab, the video file was intact. The recording showed everything: Diane's final hour, Victor's confession, and one more thing that made the investigator reviewing the footage stop breathing for a moment. In the video's final seconds, after Diane died and Victor left the room, the camera captured movement in the doorway. The frozen woman, Subject 6, stood up. Her joints cracked as she moved, ice flaking from her limbs. She walked stiffly to Diane's body, stood over it for a long moment, then leaned down and whispered something to the corpse. The audio was distorted by cold, but forensic enhancement revealed 2 words: "Your turn." Then Subject 6 lay back down in her original position by the door and stopped moving. When troopers found the cabin, they discovered 6 bodies in a storage freezer in the basement. All frozen solid. All women between 28 and 42. All previous Airbnb guests. But Subject 6 wasn't with them. Her body was missing. In her place was a note, handwritten in spidery script. Subject 6, Trial 7. Successful revival. Consciousness preserved. Mobility restored. Continuing research independently. V. K. The Airbnb listing was taken down. Viktor Krasnov disappeared. Completely no passport activity, no credit card usage, no digital footprint. But 3 months after the investigation concluded, a new listing appeared in Barrow, Alaska. Furthest north Airbnb in America. Experience authentic Arctic living. 5-star reviews. The host's name was Victoria Kramer, and the property description mentioned state-of-the-art climate control. Can simulate temperatures as low as -150 degrees, it claimed. 23 people have booked it so far. 23 people who wanted to experience real Alaska, who wanted to test themselves against the cold, who thought they understood what they were getting into when they turned that thermostat down and felt the frost begin to grow. 23 people who didn't know that some of the previous guests never left, never thawed, never stopped experimenting with how cold human flesh can get before it stops being human and becomes something else, something patient, something hungry for warmth, something that whispers, "Your turn." to each new arrival while they're sleeping. Breath frosting in the negative-degree air, dreaming of ice that doesn't melt and cold that doesn't end. The Airbnb slept 6, according to the listing, but there were 7 people at breakfast when Chloe came down the stairs. She counted twice to be sure: her husband Derek, their 2 kids Mia and Jackson, and the Pattersons, Robert, Angela, and their teenage son Connor. 7 people. The listing maximum was 6. The cabin sat 30 miles outside Anchorage, surrounded by snow-heavy pines and silence. They'd split the cost with the Pattersons, friends from Denver who'd wanted to join them for a week of skiing and northern lights. The place was perfect, rustic but comfortable, with a commercial kitchen, stone fireplace, and windows facing the mountains. The host, a woman named Teresa, had left them a welcome basket with homemade jam and a note promising an authentic Alaskan family experience. Chloe stood in the kitchen doorway, watching everyone eat pancakes at the long wooden table. Something felt wrong, but she couldn't identify what. Everyone was here. She could see them all clearly. Derek was talking about trail conditions. Robert was pouring orange juice. The kids were absorbed in their phones. Angela was laughing at something Connor said. Wait. She counted again. Derek, Mia, Jackson, Robert, Angela, Connor. 6 people. Not 7, but a moment ago. You okay? Derek asked, noticing her frozen in the doorway. Fine. I thought I counted wrong. Too much wine last night? Robert grinned. We did go through 3 bottles. Chloe forced a smile and sat down, poured herself coffee. The feeling persisted, though. Something was off. Someone was missing, or someone extra had been there. She couldn't shake it. After breakfast, they headed out to ski. The day was clear and brutally cold, -12 degrees, but beautiful. They spent hours on the trails, came back exhausted and starving, and cooked dinner together: salmon and vegetables, eaten around the fireplace. Normal, pleasant, exactly what they'd planned. But at dinner, Chloe counted 8 people at the table. She stopped mid-bite, fork halfway to her mouth. Derek, Mia, Jackson, Robert, Angela, Connor, herself. That was 7. Who was the 8th? She looked around the table carefully, studying each face. Everyone she expected to see was there. No one extra, and yet the count was wrong. She could feel it. Chloe. Sorry, how to explain without sounding insane? Is everyone here? No one's in the bathroom or upstairs? We're all here, Derek said slowly. Why? I don't know. Something feels off. The table went quiet. Then, Mia, 13 years old and brutally honest, said, I feel it too, like there's someone behind me. But when I turn around, no one's there. Jackson nodded. Me too, in my room. I keep thinking someone's standing in the corner. Connor looked uncomfortable. Okay, this is weird, but I saw someone last night, in the upstairs hallway. I got up to pee around 2 a.m. and there was a person standing outside the bathroom. I said, excuse me, but they didn't move. I walked past them, like, really close, and went to the bathroom. When I came out, they were gone. What did they look like? Chloe's voice came out sharper than intended. That's the thing. I don't remember. It's like they were blurry, like my eyes wouldn't focus on them. Angela laughed nervously. You guys are creeping me out. It's just an old cabin, shadows and imagination. But Robert had gone pale. Angela, did you see the family photo? The one in the living room? What photo? Exactly. I know I saw it. This morning, above the fireplace. A family of 5 parents, 3 kids. Old picture, 1970s style. But now it's not there. I've been trying to remember where I saw it, and I'm positive it was above the fireplace. But there's just a mirror there. They all turned to look. Just a mirror, reflecting the 7 of them sitting around the table, firelight flickering across their confused faces. Except the mirror showed 8 people. Chloe saw it first. In the reflection, there was someone sitting at the head of the table where no one actually sat. A person-shaped blur, features indistinct, like a photograph taken with a moving camera. As she stared, the blur shifted slightly, turning its head to look directly at her reflection. "Tell me someone else sees that," she whispered. They all saw it. 8 people in the mirror, 7 people at the table. Derek stood up fast enough to knock his chair over. "We're leaving. Now. Pack your stuff." But when they tried the front door, it wouldn't open. Not locked, worse than locked. When Derek turned the handle and pulled, the door moved, maybe an inch, then stopped, like something on the other side was holding it closed. He pulled harder. The door rattled, but wouldn't budge. "Back door," Robert said. They rushed to the kitchen. Same problem. The door opened an inch, then stuck. Through the gap, Chloe could see the back porch, snow gently falling. Freedom, just an inch away. "Windows," Angela suggested. They tried every window on the first floor, all locked with mechanisms that didn't make sense. Keyhole locks where no key fit, latches that wouldn't move, and when Derek grabbed a chair to smash one, the glass didn't break. The chair bounced off like the window was made of rubber. "Phones," Chloe said. They all grabbed their phones. No service. That was normal, the cabin was remote. But the Wi-Fi didn't work either, despite having worked perfectly all day. The network still showed on their devices, full bars, but no data flowed. Chloe tried to text Teresa. Message failed. Called her. The phone made ringing sounds, but something about them was wrong. Hollow. Like the phone was pretending to ring but not actually connecting. 9 p.m. They were trapped in the cabin with something that showed up in mirrors, but not in real life. Something that made them count wrong. Something that stood in hallways and sat at tables, and no one could quite remember seeing. "There has to be an explanation," Robert said, but his voice shook. "Gas leak. Carbon monoxide." "All of us," Derek shot back. "The same hallucination?" Mia started crying. Jackson hugged her, and Chloe saw that her son was crying too, silent tears running down his 12-year-old face. Her children were terrified. She was terrified, and they were stuck here until morning. At least, maybe longer. Connor had been quiet, staring at his phone. Now he looked up. "My photos. I've been taking pictures all day, right? Look." He swiped through his phone gallery. Normal vacation photos, the cabin exterior, the trails, the mountains. "Now look at this one, from breakfast this morning." The photo showed the kitchen table. 8 people sitting around it. 7 were clear. Chloe could identify each family member, the Pattersons. The 8th person sat at the head of the table, blurred, indistinct, but definitely there. And in the photo, all 7 of the clear people were looking at the blurred person, smiling at it, like they were having a conversation with it. "I don't remember that," Chloe said. "I don't remember anyone sitting there." "None of us do. But look at our faces. We're not confused. We're not scared. We're acting like it's normal." Connor swiped to the next photo. Taken an hour later, judging by the timestamp, everyone gearing up to ski. And there, in the background, slightly out of focus, was the blurred person, standing in the corner, watching. More photos. The thing appeared in 17 of them throughout the day, sometimes in the background, sometimes close enough to touch someone. In one photo, it stood directly behind Chloe, and in the image, she was leaning back against it like it was Derek. But Derek was visible 5 feet away, putting on his boots. "What is it?" Angela's voice was barely audible. The lights went out. Complete darkness. The fireplace had died down to embers, casting barely any light. Then, slowly, their eyes adjusted. Moonlight through the windows provided faint illumination, enough to see shapes. Enough to see that there were 8 shapes in the room, not 7. The additional guest stood in the middle of them. Chloe could see it now, not blurred anymore. Solid, real. A woman, maybe 40 years old, wearing jeans and a sweater. Brown hair, normal face, pleasant, unremarkable. The kind of person you'd pass on the street and forget immediately. Except her eyes. Her eyes were wrong. Too dark. Not brown or black, but dark in a way that suggested absence, like looking into holes that went deeper than a skull should allow. "Hello," the woman said. Her voice sounded normal. "I'm the additional guest." No one moved. No one breathed. You're wondering why you can't leave, why you keep forgetting you've seen me, why I'm here. The woman smiled. I live here. I've always lived here. Teresa doesn't know about me. The previous owners didn't either. I'm not attached to the building. I'm attached to the number. What number? Derek managed to ask. 6. This cabin sleeps 6. But there's always room for one more. There's always an additional guest. And once you arrive, once you settle in, I become part of your group. You don't notice. Your mind adjusts. You include me in your count, in your meals, in your photos. Then you forget again, back and forth, remembering and forgetting, until you're not sure anymore what's real. Chloe felt dizzy. How long has this been happening? Since you arrived. I was here when you unpacked. I helped cook breakfast. I went skiing with you, don't you remember? I was right behind you on the trail. You turned around and waved at me. Connor, I was in your room last night. We talked for 20 minutes about school. You told me about your girlfriend. Connor made a strangled sound. No, that didn't I would remember, would you? You already don't remember the family photo, the one Robert saw this morning. It was real. I showed it to him. It was my family. From when I lived here, before I stopped being real in the way you're real, before I became the additional guest. What do you want? Chloe asked. The woman's smile widened. I want you to stay. All of you. Then you'll be like me. Part of the cabin. Counted and uncounted. Seen and unseen. Other families will come. They'll book this Airbnb. They'll notice something wrong with their count. They'll see 8 people instead of 7, then 7 instead of 8. That's insane, Derek said. Is it? How many families have stayed here, do you think? How many left reviews saying what a great place this is? Teresa has hosted 147 groups since she bought the cabin 3 years ago. Not one bad review, not one complaint. Everyone loves it here. Everyone remembers having a wonderful, authentic Alaskan family experience. They just don't remember the additional guests who joined them, who stood behind them in photos, who sat at their tables, who whispered to them in the dark. Mia sobbed. Please let us go. I can't. You're already half forgotten. Look, she gestured at the mirror above the fireplace. In the reflection, only 6 people were visible. The kids, the adults, but not Chloe. She looked down at herself, solid, real, standing among her family. Then, at the mirror, empty space where she should be. No, she breathed. It happens to one person first. Usually the one who notices first. The one who starts counting. That's you, Chloe. You're already becoming like me. Give it a few more hours. Your family will forget they came with you. They'll remember coming as a group of 6. And you'll stay here, additional and uncounted, waiting for the next guests. Chloe turned to Derek. You can see me, right? Tell me you can see me. Derek looked at her, looked through her. His gaze slid past her face like she was glass. Chloe? He said uncertainly, turning in a circle. Where did you go? I'm right here. She grabbed his arm. Her hand passed through him. She wasn't screaming. She was past screaming. This was worse than death. This was erasure. Being unmade while still conscious, still aware. She looked at her children. Mia had stopped crying. Jackson was staring at the spot where Chloe stood, but not quite at her. A little to the left. Mom? Jackson whispered. Are you here? Mom, I'm here, baby. I'm right here. I feel like I'm forgetting something important. The original additional guest, put a hand on Chloe's shoulder. Chloe felt the touch. Solid. Real. The first real thing since she'd looked in the mirror. It gets easier, the woman said kindly. The forgetting. After a while, you forget that you were ever remembered, and then it doesn't hurt anymore. You just exist in the gaps, in the uncounted spaces, and when families come, you get to pretend for a little while that you're part of something, that you belong to the count. How many? Chloe asked. How many are here? Additional guests? Right now, 14. But your family will add 6 more eventually. One always goes first, then the others follow, over hours or days. Different rates. Some fight it, some accept it, but everyone forgets and becomes forgotten in the end. Chloe looked at her family. They were huddled together now. 7 people who'd arrived as 8, who'd remember checking out as 6, who'd tell their friends about the great Alaskan Airbnb that slept exactly the right number of guests. They'd look at photos later and notice blurred figures in the background and think it was just camera artifacts. They'd count the people in their vacation pictures and come up with different numbers each time and blame their memory. And she'd be here, additional, uncounted, waiting for the next guests to arrive so she could stand in their hallways, sit at their tables, appear in their mirrors, and slowly pull them into the gaps where the forgotten lived. The woman squeezed her shoulder. "Come, meet the others. We're having breakfast tomorrow with the new guests who check in, a family of 5 from California. It'll be nice. They sleep 6 in this cabin, but there's always room for more." Chloe looked in the mirror one last time. The reflection showed her family. 6 people, then 7, then 8. The count kept changing as she watched. Reality unable to decide how many people were really there, how many had ever been there, how many would always be there in the spaces between counted and uncounted. She turned away from the mirror, turned toward the woman who'd been waiting, who'd been forgotten, who'd learned to live in the additional spaces where math didn't quite work and families arrived in the wrong numbers. "Okay," Chloe said. "Introduce me to the others." And somewhere, a long way from the cabin, Teresa received a glowing 5-star review. "Perfect cabin, authentic Alaska experience. Slept our whole family comfortably, exactly the right size. Would definitely book again." The review was posted by Derek. He'd written it while sitting at the breakfast table, surrounded by 5 people. His 2 kids, Robert and Angela. The count was right. The count had always been right. He just couldn't quite remember who'd taken the group photo before they'd left. Someone must have, because there it was on his phone, 6 smiling people in front of the cabin. Must have been the host, or maybe they'd used a timer. He didn't remember. It didn't matter. What mattered was that they'd had a wonderful time, all 6 of them. Well, 7, counting no, 6. 6 exactly. The perfect number for a family vacation in Alaska. The Airbnb listing never mentioned maintenance, but the maintenance man arrived at the Juneau rental at 3 a.m. on Isabella's second night. She woke to the sound of drilling in the walls, loud and rhythmic, metal on wood. Her first confused thought was that someone was doing construction in the middle of the night. Her second thought, more alarmed, was that someone was inside the walls. The Airbnb was a converted warehouse apartment, industrial chic, with exposed brick and high ceilings. The host, Marcus, had been apologetic about the noise. "Old building," he'd written in a message after she'd booked. "Sometimes the pipes are loud. Earplugs provided in the bathroom cabinet. But this wasn't pipes. This was deliberate, purposeful drilling, moving slowly along the wall behind her bed." Isabella got up, grabbed her phone, and turned on the flashlight. The wall looked normal red brick, no obvious holes or damage. But the drilling continued, and she could track its progress. It started near the floor, moved up at an angle, then across, like someone was creating something, a pattern, a shape. The drilling stopped abruptly. Silence. Then, very clearly, knocking. 3 evenly spaced knocks from inside the wall, directly level with her head. She should leave. She should grab her things and run. But it was 3 a.m. in Juneau, Alaska, in October, and she was 8 hours into a 22-hour layover before her connecting flight to Anchorage. The cheapest hotel she'd found was $200 a night. This Airbnb was $60. She'd make it work. She'd put in earplugs, ignore whatever was happening, and leave in the morning. The knocking came again. Then a voice, muffled by brick and space. "Maintenance. Need to check the electrical. Let me in. It's 3 in the morning." Isabella called back, voice shaking. "Electrical doesn't care what time it is. There's a problem in the walls. Fire hazard. Need access to inspect. There's no door here. It's just a wall." Pause. Then, right, I'll make one. The drilling resumed, much louder now, and this time Isabella saw the brick move, not crumble move. The bricks were pulling apart from the inside, separating at the mortar, creating a gap, a hole, an opening that definitely shouldn't be possible because the wall backed onto the exterior of the building. There was nothing behind it except 4 stories of empty air and the alley below. Isabella ran for the apartment door. Locked. Not her lock. She hadn't locked it. But now the deadbolt was engaged, and when she tried to disengage it, the bolt wouldn't move. Stuck. She yanked harder. The bolt turned, but the door still wouldn't open. Something held it from the outside. I wouldn't bother with that, the voice called from the bedroom. Door's on my maintenance list too. Needs adjustment. Sticks something terrible. Isabella pounded on the door. Marcus! Marcus! Someone's in here! No response. The building was supposedly divided into 4 units, but she hadn't seen or heard any neighbors since checking in. Now the silence felt deliberate. Arranged, like everyone else knew to be somewhere else tonight. The drilling stopped. Footsteps, heavy boots on hardwood, walked out of the bedroom into the living area, where Isabella stood by the useless door. She turned slowly. The maintenance man looked normal. Utterly, disappointingly normal. 50s, maybe. Gray hair, weathered face. He wore navy coveralls with a patch on the chest that said Juneau Building Services. He carried a toolbox. He smiled at her like they were having a perfectly ordinary interaction. Sorry about the noise, he said. Emergency maintenance. You understand. There's no emergency. Get out, or I'm calling the police. Already called them. They're aware. This building's flagged for electrical violations. I'm authorized. He pulled a laminated badge from his pocket. It looked official photo, ID number, city seal. See? All legitimate. Isabella grabbed her phone. No service. Full bars. But when she tried to dial 911, the call wouldn't connect. Just silence. She tried texting. Messages failed. Yeah, electrical problems mess with cell signals sometimes, the maintenance man said sympathetically. That's why I'm here. Let me check a few things and I'll be out of your way. He walked to the wall and examined the hole he'd created. The opening was roughly person-sized. Through it, Isabella could see darkness. Not alley, not exterior, just black void. What is that? She whispered. That? Oh, that's the problem. Someone made an unauthorized modification to the building structure. Created a space that shouldn't exist. Against code, I need to seal it up. He reached into his toolbox and pulled out a measuring tape, extended it into the darkness. The tape kept going. 10 feet, 20 feet, 40 feet. The tape extended farther than should be possible into a space that was supposed to be exterior wall. The maintenance man frowned. Yeah, that's not good. That's a Class 3 dimensional variance. Serious violation. You been noticing anything weird? Rooms bigger on the inside than outside? Hallways that don't connect logically. This doesn't make sense. Ma'am, I need you to calm down. This is a routine structural inspection. Happens all the time in older buildings. Just need to ask you a few questions. You're Isabella Chen, correct? Staying 2 nights, checking out October 16th? How do you know It's on my work order. Now, have you noticed any of the following? Missing time, déjà vu, seeing people who aren't there, hearing voices in walls, or finding rooms you don't remember entering? Isabella stared at him. Yes, all of those. Since I got here yesterday, I keep the bathroom. I keep finding myself in the bathroom with no memory of walking there. And I've seen someone in the windows, watching from outside. But we're 4 stories up. The maintenance man made notes on his clipboard. Uh-huh. Classic symptoms. And let me guess, the apartment feels bigger than the listing photos. More rooms than you expected? Now that he mentioned it, yes. She'd noticed an extra closet in the bedroom this morning. A closet that hadn't been there the night before. She'd assumed she'd missed it in the dark, but now she wasn't sure. The building's settling, the maintenance man explained. Not in the regular way, it's settling into a different dimensional configuration. Happens sometimes in places with enough history, enough trauma, something about suffering and architecture, they resonate. He walked to the kitchen, opened a cabinet, and shined a flashlight inside. The cabinet was deeper than it should be, much deeper. The back wasn't visible. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to step back. This unit's compromised, structurally unstable. I'm issuing a mandatory evacuation." "Fine." "Great. Open the door." "Can't do that. Door's part of the structural problem. Opening it might cause a cascade failure, but there's another way out." He pointed at the hole in the bedroom wall, the opening into darkness. "You're insane if you think I'm going in there. It's not in there. It's through there. There's a difference. This hole connects to the maintenance corridors. They'll take you to the ground floor, and you can exit through the service entrance. Perfectly safe. I'll guide you." "No. Ma'am, I'm afraid this isn't optional. Building Code Section 73.4 requires immediate evacuation when dimensional variance exceeds safe parameters. You staying here puts you at risk of becoming part of the structure, and then I'd have to file a lot of paperwork." Isabella backed toward the window. Maybe she could break it, scream for help. But when she looked outside, the view was wrong. The alley wasn't there anymore. Instead, she saw a corridor, a long, industrial hallway with yellow lights and doors at regular intervals, like looking into the building from outside, except she was supposed to be in the building. "See?" the maintenance man said. "Topology's already inverting. In about 20 minutes, the entire unit will complete the flip. Inside will become outside. Outside will become inside. You'll be trapped in the wall cavity. People have survived that before, technically. But it's not pleasant. What do you want from me?" "I want you to leave safely so I can seal this variance and move on to my next work order. I got 12 more violations to inspect tonight." He checked a watch. "Running behind schedule because you're being difficult." Isabella felt the floor tilt slightly. Not physically. Gravity still worked normally, but perceptually. The room was rotating in her vision, angles becoming subtly wrong. The corner where two walls met looked less than 90 degrees. The ceiling appeared closer than it had moments ago. "It's starting," the maintenance man said. "Time to choose. Door doesn't work. Windows lead to hallways now. Only way out is through the maintenance corridor. And if I refuse, then you become part of the structure. Your consciousness gets incorporated into the building. You'll be aware but unable to move or communicate, just existing as part of the walls, feeling everyone who lives here, hearing every sound, watching every moment through cracks and gaps, forever, or until the building's demolished, whichever comes first." The room tilted further. Isabella stumbled, caught herself against the wall. Her hand sank into the brick slightly, like pushing into firm clay. She jerked back. The wall where she'd touched held an impression of her palm. "Clock's ticking," the maintenance man said. Isabella ran for the hole in the wall. The darkness was complete. She couldn't see her hands in front of her face. "Don't turn. Don't stop. Don't touch the walls. Maintenance corridors connect to lots of places. You touch the walls, you might exit somewhere unplanned." They walked for what felt like hours. Isabella's legs ached. She had no sense of distance or direction. The darkness was absolute, somehow darker than simple lack of light, substantial darkness. She could feel it against her skin, cold and slightly damp. "Where are we?" she asked. "Between. This is the space between spaces. Every building has it. The gaps in construction, the hollow places. Most people never see it. But during dimensional variance, the between becomes accessible. You're literally walking through the walls right now. That's impossible. And yet," his hand squeezed her shoulder. "Turn left here." She turned. Still darkness, still walking. Her mind felt fuzzy, thoughts hard to hold. How long had they been walking? Minutes? Hours? She'd lost all sense of time. "Am I going to get out of here?" she asked. The maintenance man didn't answer immediately. "What?" Most people who book this Airbnb are real, solid, verifiable. But some like you, Isabella, are a little bit uncertain. Your flight to Juneau was delayed 7 hours, wasn't it? Freak storm. You almost didn't come at all. And your connecting flight to Anchorage doesn't actually exist. I checked. There's no flight with that number tomorrow. Isabella's stomach dropped. You're lying. Check your booking confirmation. When you get signal again. If you get signal again. They walked in silence. Isabella tried to remember making the flight reservation. Tried to remember the airport in Seattle. The plane to Juneau. The memories were there, but they felt thin, like recalled movies rather than lived experiences. Here we are, the maintenance man said. They stopped. Service exits through that door. You'll come out in the alley. From there, you can go wherever you need to go. Or wherever you think you need to go. I can't see any door. You will. He removed his hand from her shoulder. Goodbye, Isabella. Or whoever you are. Wait. But he was gone. No footsteps, no breathing. Just absence, then light, dim at first, then brighter. A door materialized in front of her, gray metal with a push bar. She hit the bar and stumbled outside into cold air and the smell of garbage. An alley, dumpsters, dawn light just beginning to touch the sky. Isabella ran to the street. Early morning Juneau looked normal. A few cars, some pedestrians. She found a coffee shop, used their Wi-Fi, checked her flight confirmation. Her connecting flight to Anchorage, the one she'd booked weeks ago, showed as canceled. Not delayed, canceled. The airline had no record of it ever existing. She called Marcus, the Airbnb host, straight to voicemail. She left a message detailing everything. 2 hours later, he called back. Isabella, I don't have a booking under that name. Yes, Unit 4. The warehouse conversion. Long pause. Unit 4's been vacant for 11 months. Electrical problems. It's not listed on Airbnb. It's not habitable. I have the listing confirmation. The messages from you. Send them to me. She pulled up the Airbnb app. The listing was gone. Her booking history showed no reservation in Juneau. The messages she'd exchanged with Marcus didn't exist. Even her payment, she checked her credit card, never went through. No charge for the Airbnb. No record at all. I was there, she whispered. I stayed there. I met the maintenance man. There's no maintenance scheduled for that unit, Marcus said. He sounded genuinely confused. And we don't have a maintenance man. We use contractors, different people each time. Isabella hung up, stood on a Juneau street corner as morning traffic built around her. She had no reason to be in Juneau, no flight to catch, no destination, just a vivid memory of staying somewhere that didn't exist, meeting someone who wasn't real, walking through spaces between spaces. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Work order completed. Unit 4 variant sealed. Thank you for your cooperation. Juneau Building Services. She never found out where she'd actually stayed that night. Never confirmed whether she'd really been in Unit 4 or somewhere else or nowhere at all. But 6 months later, browsing Airbnb for a completely different trip, she found a listing that made her breath stop. Same warehouse building, same conversion. Unit 4, back online. Recently renovated. The description said, all structural issues resolved. 5-star reviews, guests raving about how comfortable it was, how solid the walls felt, how quiet the nights were. One review, posted 3 weeks ago, caught her eye. Great place. Only weird thing, I could swear I heard someone walking around in the walls at night, and I found a handprint pressed into the brick by the bed. Must be from the renovation work. Anyway, 5 stars. Isabella looked at the photo attached to the review. The bedroom, the wall. She could see the handprint in the brick. 5 fingers, clear as day. Her size, her shape. She zoomed in on the photo. There, barely visible in the shadow of the handprint's impression, was text. Someone had carved words into the brick, small and precise. Isabella Chen, October 15 to 16. Dimensional variance casualty. Incorporated into structure. Status. Unresolved. She closed the app, deleted it, threw her phone in a drawer. But late at night, when she's almost asleep, She sometimes hears drilling in the walls, slow and rhythmic, creating patterns, making spaces. And sometimes, when it's very quiet, she hears a voice. Maintenance. Need to check the electrical. Let me in. She never does. But the drilling continues, night after night, and the walls grow thinner. One day, she knows, there will be a hole, an opening, and the maintenance man will step through and smile at her with his weathered face and say, "There you are. I've been looking for you. You never actually left, you know. This life you're living, it's just the space between where you were and where you're going. Come on, time to finish the job." And when that day comes, Isabella knows she'll follow him. Because part of her, the part that pressed its hand into brick and felt the wall give way, the part that walked through impossible darkness and emerged somewhere that doesn't match her memories, never left at all. That part is still there, in Unit 4, incorporated into the structure, waiting for the dimensional variance to complete, waiting to become fully part of the walls, waiting to be home. The cabin near Ketchikan only existed 3 days out of every month, but Airbnb didn't know that. The listing stayed active year-round. Host Sarah, with her 5-star rating and 83 perfect reviews. Secluded cabin with stunning water views. Perfect for couples seeking quiet retreat. Daniel and Priya had booked it for their anniversary. 4 days in mid-November, chasing the last aurora displays before winter settled in completely. They'd arrived by float plane, the pilot dropping them at a small dock with their supplies. "See you in 4 days," he'd said, weather permitting. The cabin was beautiful, exactly like the photos. Log walls, stone fireplace, massive windows overlooking the strait, clean sheets, stocked kitchen, a handwritten welcome note from Sarah. "Enjoy your stay. Please respect the house rules." Quiet hours strictly enforced. They'd unpacked, made dinner, watched the sunset over the water. Perfect. At 9 p.m., Daniel opened the house rules binder to check checkout procedures. The first page made him laugh. "Listen to this," he told Priya. "Rule 1. Do not go outside between sunset and sunrise. Rule 2. If you hear knocking, do not answer. Rule 3. Stay out of the basement. Rule 4. Only drink bottled water. Do not use tap water under any circumstances." He flipped through the rest. 10 pages of increasingly bizarre restrictions. This is some kind of joke, right? Like those creepy online stories. Priya frowned. That's weird. None of this was in the listing. Hosts trying to be quirky, giving the cabin a haunted vibe for atmosphere. Daniel tossed the binder aside. Very Alaska. Very mysterious. At 11:30 p.m., the knocking started. Slow, measured knocks on the back door. 3 beats, pause, 3 beats. Daniel went to check, expecting maybe an animal or branches scraping the wood. Through the door's window, he saw a man standing on the porch, older, maybe 60, wearing outdated clothing, canvas jacket, wool pants, rubber boots from the 1970s. Daniel opened the door. "Can I help you?" The man stared at him. Through him. His eyes were wrong, clouded, like cataracts. But the cloudiness moved. Swirled. "Is Sarah here?" the man asked. His voice sounded distant, like he was speaking from the far end of a tunnel. "Sarah's the host. She doesn't live here. This is an Airbnb rental." "Airbnb? When what? When is this?" Daniel felt uneasy. "November 17th, 2023. Are you okay? Do you need help?" The man's face crumpled. No. Not supposed to be now. Supposed to be the 3rd. Always the 3rd. What day is today? The 17th. Like I said, what day of the month? The 17th. The man made a sound like a sob or a laugh. "Wrong. You're here wrong. This cabin isn't here now. It's only here on the 3rd, 4th, and 5th. You shouldn't be able to access it. How did you access it?" "We flew in this afternoon. Used the booking code Sarah sent." "What are you talking about?" The man backed away from the door. "You need to leave. Now. Before midnight. The cabin isn't stable except on its proper days. If you're here on the wrong dates, you'll slip. You'll fall into the wrong when. Mister, I think you're confused. Maybe drunk. You should go home. I am home. This is my cabin. I built it in 1977. Lived here for 30 years. Until the accident. He gestured at the strait. Fell through the ice. December 3rd, 2007. Died out there. But the cabin, it remembered me. Pulled me back. Now I only exist on those 3 days. The days I died. The cabin only exists then, too. We're tied together. Dead man and dead house. Except you're here now. Wrong dates. And that means he vanished. Not walked away. Vanished. Mid-sentence, mid-gesture, like a video cut. One frame he was there. Next frame, empty porch. Daniel stood in the doorway. Cold wind cutting through his sweater. Priya appeared behind him. I don't know. Some guy claiming this is his cabin. Claiming it only exists 3 days a month. He just disappeared. Disappeared. Blinked out of reality. They searched online using the cabin's satellite Wi-Fi. Found property records. The cabin was built in 1977 by Robert Carlson. Robert died December 3rd, 2007, drowning after falling through ice. The property was sold to Sarah Mackenzie in 2009. She turned it into a rental, but when they looked at Sarah's Airbnb calendar, they saw something that made Priya's hand shake as she held the phone. The cabin was only available for booking 3 days out of each month, 3rd, 4th, 5th, every month, never any other dates. They scrolled back through 2 years of availability. Same pattern, never varied, except their reservation was for November 17th through 21st. Daniel checked his confirmation email. The dates were right there, 17th through 21st. Call Sarah, Priya said. No signal. The satellite Wi-Fi could load web pages but wasn't configured for calls. They tried the cabin's landline. Dead. Not disconnected, dead. At midnight exactly, the cabin lurched. Not like an earthquake. Like a skip. Like reality stuttered. One moment they were standing in the living room. Next moment, they were in slightly different positions. Daniel found himself 2 feet to the left. Priya was facing a different direction. The fire in the fireplace had jumped. Flames that had been low were suddenly high. Did you feel that? Priya whispered. The cabin lurched again. This time Daniel saw it happen. The walls seemed to phase, becoming translucent for a split second. Through them, he saw different furniture. An older couch. Different curtains, like glimpsing through time. Another lurch. The lurches were coming faster now, every 30 seconds. And with each one, the cabin changed slightly. The wallpaper pattern shifted. The floorboards looked newer, then older. The kitchen appliances cycled through decades. Modern stainless steel, then harvest gold from the 70s, then back to modern, then to nothing at all, just empty space where the kitchen had been. It's moving through time, Daniel said. Or we are, or I don't know, but we're not stable. They ran for the door, threw it open. Outside, the landscape stuttered with each lurch. One moment it was night, next moment dawn, next moment twilight. The strait froze and thawed, and froze again in rapid succession. The dock where the float plane had dropped them appeared and disappeared. Sometimes it was old and weathered, sometimes new, sometimes gone entirely. We can't leave, Priya said. If we go outside while it's shifting, we might end up when the ice is solid and fall through when it shifts again. Or end up in a when, where the dock doesn't exist and there's just water. They slammed the door and backed into the center of the room. The lurches intensified. Every 10 seconds now. The cabin was cycling faster, spinning through its existence, and they were caught in the spin. Daniel grabbed the house rules binder. Maybe there was something useful in those weird restrictions. He flipped through frantically. Most rules were vague warnings, but near the end, he found a different kind of entry. Emergency Temporal Stabilization Protocol. If the cabin begins cycling through time unexpectedly, all occupants must gather in the bathroom. Close the door. Do not open it until the cycling stops. The bathroom was built from salvaged ship timber, circa 1890. The wood predates the cabin and exists on a different temporal frequency. It provides anchor. Bathroom! Daniel yelled. They sprinted down the short hall. The bathroom was tiny, just toilet, sink, and shower. They crammed inside and slammed the door. Immediately, the lurching stopped. The bathroom was stable, but through the crack under the door, they could see the hallway outside, still shifting. Light changing, shadows moving. They waited. Hours, maybe. No clock in the bathroom, and their phones behaved erratically. The time displays jumped forward and backward randomly. Eventually, Daniel carefully opened the door an inch. The cabin was stable, but it was different. Wrong. The hallway led to rooms that hadn't been there before. He could see 4 doors off the main hall where there had been 2. The walls were bare wood, no drywall, no wallpaper. Through the living room doorway, he saw old furniture, a wood-burning stove instead of the stone fireplace. "I think we went back," he whispered. "This is the cabin from the 70s. A voice called from the living room. "Sarah? That you?" "Robert." The man from the porch. But his voice sounded younger now. Alive. Daniel pulled the door shut. "We're in his time. When he was alive. What do we do?" "Wait. The cabin cycles. Maybe it'll cycle back to our time." They waited longer. The next time Daniel checked, the cabin was different again. Modern furniture. Updated kitchen visible through the hallway. But the layout was still wrong. Rooms in different positions. "It's not cycling back to exactly when we arrived," Daniel realized. "It's moving through all the possible configurations. All the times this cabin has existed. We might never land on November 17th, 2023 again." Priya started crying. "So we're trapped, jumping through time. Forever." "The listing," Daniel said suddenly. "Sarah's Airbnb listing. It's only available 3 days a month, the days Robert died, the days the cabin remembers most strongly. Those are the stable days. If we can get to one of those dates, we'll stick. We'll stop cycling. How do we navigate to a specific date?" Daniel had no answer. They stayed in the bathroom, venturing out occasionally to check the cabin's current state. Sometimes it was empty, sometimes occupied by people they didn't recognize, previous renters, maybe, or Robert at different ages. Sometimes the cabin was under construction, just a frame. Once, they opened the door to find the interior completely burned out, charred wood and ash, though the bathroom remained intact. They lost track of time. Ate food when the kitchen existed and had supplies, drank from bottles they found, following the house rules warning about tap water, though they didn't know why, until they opened the door once and found the cabin flooded. 2 feet of water throughout, the strait having risen through some disaster they didn't witness. Eventually, they developed a sense for it. The cycling had a rhythm. The cabin spent longer in certain configurations, decades when it had been particularly loved or particularly traumatized. The 70s, when Robert built it. 2007, when he died. Recent years, when Sarah ran it as a rental. They started waiting for the December 3rd feeling. The atmosphere changed on that date across all years. Colder, heavier. The light through the windows was always that particular gray-blue of early winter afternoon. When they felt it, they left the bathroom. The cabin was exactly as they'd first seen it. Modern, clean, but the calendar in the kitchen showed December 3rd. They'd been cycling for what felt like weeks, but had actually been... They couldn't tell. Their phones showed dates from across 20 years. The float plane arrived on schedule. The pilot knocked on the door. They grabbed their bags, still packed from what felt like forever ago, but was also somehow only now, and ran for the dock. The pilot loaded them into the plane, and as they lifted off, Daniel looked back at the cabin. Through the windows, he could see someone standing inside. Robert, old like he'd been on the porch, waving. Then the cabin phased slightly, and Robert was younger. Then older. Then gone. The cabin flickered like a dying bulb. Back in Ketchikan, they tried to report what happened to Sarah. Her number was disconnected. The listing was gone from Airbnb. When they called Airbnb support, The representative said there was no record of any host named Sarah Mackenzie, no property at the location they described. But we stayed there, Priya insisted. Send them to us, please. They pulled up their emails. The confirmation was gone. The message history with Sarah didn't exist. Their photos from the cabin, dozens of them from that first perfect evening, were all corrupted files, gray squares with error messages. Only one photo remained intact, a selfie they'd taken in the bathroom mirror during the cycling, trying to prove to themselves they were still real. In the photo, they looked exhausted, terrified, but the date stamp showed December 3rd, 2007, the exact day Robert died, and reflected in the mirror behind them, barely visible, was a figure, Robert, standing in the bathroom doorway, watching them. In the photo, he was smiling. Daniel had the image analyzed by a friend who worked in photo forensics. The conclusion, not doctored, but temporally impossible. The metadata is corrupted, his friend explained, or the image somehow contains information from multiple time periods simultaneously. I've never seen anything like it. They never found the cabin again. Searched satellite maps, hired a local guide to take them to the coordinates from their GPS history. The location was empty. Just forest and shore. No cabin. No dock. The guide said there had never been anything there. Property records showed the parcel as undeveloped crown land. But every December 3rd, their phones buzz with a notification. Calendar reminder for a booking they don't remember creating. Cabin stay Ketchikan. Check-in. Deck 3. Check out. Deck 5. Host. Sarah M. Don't forget house rules. And every December 3rd, Daniel looks at Priya and asks, should we go? They never have. They're too afraid that this time the cabin won't cycle, that they'll arrive on the correct dates and the cabin will be stable, just like Sarah's listing promises. Perfect stay, 5 stars, no temporal anomalies. But they'd remember. They'd remember the other dates, the wrong when, the bathroom anchor and the cycling rooms. They'd remember being trapped between times, and they'd know that if they stayed too long, if they fell asleep in that cabin on those 3 stable days, they might wake up on the 4th, and on the 4th, the cabin doesn't exist at all, which means anyone inside it when midnight comes on December 5th simply stops existing too. At least, that's what Daniel thinks happened to the previous reviewers. The 83 perfect reviews that disappeared when the listing vanished. 83 people who stayed on the correct dates, checked out on time, left glowing feedback. 83 people whose online profiles, when Daniel searches for them, all show last activity on various December 5ths across the last 15 years. 83 people who loved their stay so much they never left another review anywhere again. Because you can't review anything when you're stuck in a when that doesn't exist. When you're part of the cabin's memory, cycling through your own stay for eternity, always arriving, always leaving, always trapped in those 3 stable days when the dead house and the dead host and the slowly dying guests all exist together. The notification always includes one line at the bottom. Robert says hello, see you soon. They never respond. But every December 3rd, their bathroom door won't stay closed. It swings open by itself, again and again, no matter how many times they shut it. Like something's inviting them in, like something remembers they know the emergency protocol, like something's waiting for them to anchor themselves in salvaged ship timber and ride the cycles back to where they belong. The Airbnb listing for the Utiajvik apartment promised 24-hour darkness from November through January. What it didn't mention was that some hours were darker than others. Marcus arrived on November 22nd for a 3-week documentary photography project. His specialty was extreme environments. The host, an Inupiaq woman named Aluk, met him at the airport. She was friendly, talkative, explained local customs, pointed out landmarks in the dark. Because it was dark, 2 p.m. and pitch black, streetlights glowing, the strange, timeless feeling of perpetual night. You'll get used to it, Aluk said as they drove to the apartment. Most people do. The ones who don't leave early. What makes them leave? She didn't answer immediately. Then, they get confused about time, forget which hour is which. It's easy to do when you can't see the sun. All hours look the same. But they're not. Some hours are dangerous. Marcus laughed it off. He'd worked in Antarctica, in the deep Canadian tundra. He understood darkness. But as they pulled up to the apartment building, a small complex near the water, Aluk turned to him with an expression that killed his laughter. "The long night has rules," she said. "During certain hours, don't look outside. You'll hear things. People you know, calling your name. Don't respond. Don't go outside. Wait until the hour passes. Which hours? You'll know. The darkness gets heavier. You'll feel it." She handed him the keys. "I'm serious. This isn't superstition. People who don't follow the rules disappear. We find them later, sometimes, miles from town, frozen. But they're not quite dead. Still conscious, still aware, trapped in their bodies while the cold preserves them. We call them the frozen aware. They can't move or speak, but their eyes follow you. Worst thing I've ever seen." Marcus wanted to dismiss it as local color, an attempt to spook the tourist. But Aluk's face was deadly serious. She clearly believed what she was saying. The apartment was small but comfortable. Kitchen, bathroom, bedroom, living room with large windows facing the ocean. Marcus unpacked, set up his camera equipment, checked the time. 4:30 p.m., black as midnight outside. He made dinner, edited photos from earlier projects, and at 9 p.m. decided to go to bed. He'd start shooting tomorrow, today, whatever around noon, when local businesses were active. He woke at 2 a.m. Something had disturbed him, a sound. He lay in bed, listening. There it was again, tapping on the window. Not wind, deliberate. 3 taps, pause, 3 taps. Marcus got up and went to the living room. The tapping came from the big window facing the ocean. He approached carefully, phone flashlight in hand. The window reflected his own image back at him. Beyond the glass was complete darkness, not nighttime darkness, absence. The tapping came again, and this time he saw it. A hand pressing against the glass from outside. Pale, small, a child's hand. It tapped 3 times, then withdrew into the darkness. "Hello?" Marcus called. No response. He unlocked the window, started to open it. Stopped. Aluk's warning echoed. "Don't look outside. Don't go outside." He closed the window, locked it. The tapping continued for another minute, then stopped. Marcus stood there, heart pounding, until his phone told him it was 2:47 a.m. The darkness outside seemed fractionally lighter. Not brighter, but less heavy, less substantial. In the morning, Marcus forced himself to think in terms of morning and evening. Despite the darkness, he asked neighbors about the tapping. An older man in the apartment below shrugged. "Happens sometimes during the long night. Used to be ice crystals hitting windows, wind playing tricks. Now it's other things." "What other things?" "Things that learn to mimic what we miss. Sunlight, voices, familiar faces. The polar night is long here. Used to be. People went south for part of it. But now we stay year-round. And the darkness has been here longer than us. It remembers when there were no humans. It doesn't like that we stay now." Marcus spent the day, the darkness hours between sunrise and sunset times, listed on his phone photographing the town. Streetlights reflecting off snow. People going about their business in perpetual night. The strange beauty of a community functioning without daylight. He returned to the apartment around 8 p.m., exhausted, made dinner. At 11 p.m., the darkness changed. He felt it before he understood it. The air in the apartment grew heavy. Cold seeped through the walls despite the heating running. The darkness outside the windows became textured, almost solid-looking, and he heard voices. "Marcus, Marcus, you there?" His sister's voice, calling from outside. Marcus went to the window. The darkness had lifted slightly. He could see shapes now. The parking lot, the water beyond, and standing in the snow directly below his window, looking up, was his sister Claire, wearing her green winter coat, waving at him, except Claire was in Portland, 3,500 miles away. She couldn't be here. "Marcus, come down! I flew in to surprise you!" The voice was perfect. The figure looked exactly like her right height, right build, the way she tilted her head when she smiled. But Aluk's warning screamed in his mind. "Don't respond. Don't go outside. Marcus, please, it's cold out here. Let me in." He backed away from the window. The figure below, not Claire, watched him retreat. Her smile didn't change, didn't fade, just stayed frozen on her face as Marcus moved deeper into the apartment. His phone rang. "Claire's number," he answered without thinking. "Hello? Marcus, what the hell? I can see you in the window. Why won't you come down?" It was her voice, her exact voice, with the slight rasp from childhood asthma. "Claire, where are you really?" "Outside your apartment. I told you." The voice shifted, became frustrated. "Don't be weird. Just come let me in. Tell me something only you would know. From when we were kids." Long pause. Then, "I don't have time for games. It's freezing." "Tell me." "Fine. Remember when you broke Mom's vase? I took the blame. Happy? That was true. That had happened." Marcus felt his resolve weaken. Maybe it really was Claire. Maybe she'd flown in as a surprise. But what year did that happen? Longer pause. What? What year? Why does that matter? Because Claire would remember. It was the summer we moved to Tacoma, 1998. She was 12. She'd remember. The voice on the phone changed, became lower, less human. "Come outside, Marcus." "No. Come outside or I'll come in." "You can't. The doors are locked." "Then I'll wait. I'll wait in your sister's shape until you forget this is wrong. Until you see me enough times that you convince yourself I'm real, and eventually, you'll come outside. They all do. The long night is patient." The call disconnected. Marcus looked out the window. Not Claire was gone. But in the parking lot, he saw others. Dozens of figures standing in the darkness. Some looked like people. Some looked almost like people. Proportions slightly wrong. Some weren't trying to look human at all, just shapes that stood upright and watched the building with things that might have been eyes. He closed all the curtains, checked the time. 11:50 p.m. Aluk had said certain hours were dangerous. You'll feel it. He'd felt it. So how long did he have to wait? At midnight exactly, the heaviness lifted. The cold receded. Marcus opened the curtain an inch. The parking lot was empty. Just snow and streetlights. Whatever hour that had been, it was over. He called Claire. She answered, groggy. "Just needed to hear your voice. Real you. You're freaking me out. I'm fine. Go back to sleep." He wasn't fine. For the next week, he tracked the dangerous hours. They weren't consistent, not the same time each night. But they lasted between 40 minutes and 2 hours, and they always felt different, heavier. The darkness became active during those hours. Things moved in it. Things knocked on windows and doors. Things used voices of people Marcus knew. His mother, his best friend, his ex-girlfriend, all perfectly mimicked, all trying to lure him outside. He started leaving audio recordings running while he slept. In the morning waking hours, Marcus reminded himself he'd review them. During the dangerous hours, the recordings picked up sounds the apartment shouldn't have. Breathing outside windows, scratching at doors, and voices, dozens of them, all calling his name. Some he recognized, some he didn't. Some weren't quite language at all, just sounds that shaped themselves into syllables that felt like his name. On day 12, he made a mistake. He was reviewing footage from his camera set on a tripod outside during the day shift when he noticed something. The timestamps. They were wrong. Hours were missing. He checked his phone. December 3rd, 11:30 p.m. But his camera's footage jumped from December 3rd, 8 p.m. to December 4th, 2 a.m., 6 hours gone. And during those hours, the camera had recorded nothing. Not darkness, not static, just nothing. The file showed those hours as corrupted data. Marcus felt cold understanding creep through him. The long night had rules, Aluk had said. During certain hours, the hours he'd been tracking, the dangerous hours, those hours didn't actually exist. The darkness was eating time, swallowing hours between the hours, creating gaps where it could be active, where it could send things to knock on doors and mimic voices. And if Marcus went outside during those hours, during the time that wasn't real time, he'd fall into the gaps, become stuck in the between hours where the frozen aware lived. He called Aluk. The hours that disappear. How many are there? It varies. During polar night, anywhere from 2 to 6 per day. The darkness gets longer. Not just across the day. It adds hours that aren't on any clock. If you're awake during them, you experience them. But they don't count. They're stolen time. And if you go outside, you become part of the stolen time. Yes, the frozen aware. They're people who got lost in the extra hours. Their bodies are in real time, frozen and aware, but their consciousness is still in the between hours, trying to live out time that doesn't exist. Why didn't you tell me this directly? Would you have believed me? Or would you have thought I was crazy and ignored everything else? Fair point. How do I avoid it? Stay inside during the heavy hours. Don't look outside. Don't respond to voices. And most important, don't try to track the stolen time. The more you acknowledge it, the more real it becomes to you. The more likely you are to slip into it. But Marcus had already been tracking it. For 12 days, he'd been documenting the between hours, acknowledging them, making them real. And now he could feel them. Even during normal hours, he felt the edges of the stolen time pressing against reality. He'd look at his watch and swear the minute hand had jumped. He'd blink and lose minutes. His photos showed more and more corrupted timestamps. On day 15, he decided to leave early, booked a flight for the next day. But that night, at what his phone said was 10 p.m., the heaviness came. And this time, it didn't lift. 10 p.m. became 11 p.m., midnight, 1 a.m. The darkness remained heavy. The cold seeped through walls. Voices called from outside his father now, dead for 3 years, begging to be let in. Marcus hid in the bathroom. Lights on, door locked, waiting for it to end. 2 a.m., 3 a.m., still heavy, still voices. At 4 a.m., Marcus checked his camera's timestamp. December 16th, 10:04 p.m. The time hadn't moved forward. He was stuck in the 10 p.m. hour. The stolen hour that didn't exist. He'd been living it for 6 real-time hours, but no time was actually passing. He was slipping into the gaps, panicking. Marcus called Aluk. The call connected, but her voice sounded distant, distorted. Can't hear you, breaking up where I'm stuck in a between hour. It won't end. Let you in, can't come to you. Static swallowed the rest. The call dropped. Marcus tried again. No signal. His phone showed full bars but couldn't connect to anything. The tapping started. On every window, on the door, on the walls, dozens of things outside, demanding entry, and the voices his entire life calling to him. Every person he'd ever known, all speaking at once. A chorus of familiar voices saying his name. He couldn't stay here. Even if it meant going into the stolen time, he had to move. He had to escape. Marcus grabbed his warmest coat, his camera bag, his phone, went to the door, stopped. If he opened that door, he'd be in the between hours fully. He'd become one of the frozen aware. But if he stayed here, trapped in an hour that never ended, he'd eventually die. Starvation, maybe, or thirst, or just madness. At least outside, there was a chance. Maybe he could find his way back to real time. He opened the door. The darkness outside was absolute, deeper than any night. His phone flashlight died immediately, battery draining from full to empty in seconds. But he could see anyway. The darkness itself was luminous, somehow, glowing with absence of light. The apartment building was still there, but changed, stretched. The hallway extended for hundreds of yards. Doors lined both sides, far more doors than the building should have. And at the end of the hallway, so far away it shouldn't fit in the building's dimensions, was a figure. Watching him, Marcus ran the other direction, found stairs, went down, and down, and down. The building was 3 stories tall, but he descended for minutes, passing floor after floor, each stairwell identical. When he finally reached what should have been the ground floor, The door opened onto the same hallway, same impossible length, same watching figure at the end. He was in a loop, a pocket of stolen time that folded back on itself. The darkness had him. Marcus tried every door. They opened onto rooms that shouldn't exist, apartments with impossible layouts, rooms bigger than the building, spaces that connected to other buildings or other times. In one room, he found a family eating dinner, oblivious to him. The calendar on their wall said 1973. In another room, he found himself, a different Marcus, sleeping in the bed. And when this Marcus looked up and saw our Marcus, he screamed silently, mouth open but producing no sound. Hours passed, days, maybe. Marcus lost track. His phone clock had frozen at 10:04 p.m. He was starving but didn't feel hungry. Exhausted but unable to sleep. Trapped in time that didn't count. Couldn't count because it didn't exist on any real timeline. Eventually, he found a window, looked outside, saw Utqiagvik, but wrong. The buildings were arranged differently. The streets ran in different patterns, and in the parking lots, in the spaces between structures, stood hundreds of people, all frozen in place, all with eyes that moved, tracking him, aware but unable to act. The frozen aware. He'd found them. Or they'd been here all along, and he was just now seeing them. Victims of previous long nights. People who'd slipped into the stolen hours over decades or centuries. All still conscious. All trapped. A hand touched his shoulder. Marcus spun around. Aluk stood behind him, except she looked younger. 30s instead of 50s, and her eyes held the same terrible awareness he'd seen in the parking lot figures. "You're too late," she said. Her voice echoed strangely. "You acknowledged the between hours too many times, gave them power. Now you're part of them. You're not real. You're something pretending to be Aluk. I am Aluk. The Aluk from 1989. I got lost during a long night. I've been in the between hours for 34 years. In 2015, managed to reach real time for 10 years, tried to warn others. How do I get out? You don't. Not permanently. You'll slip back into real time occasionally. Minutes at a time, randomly. You'll try to warn people, but you'll always get pulled back here, into the hours that don't exist, where the darkness lives." Marcus felt something pulling at him, a tugging sensation, like being dragged backward. The room around him began to fade. Aluk's face was the last thing he saw. "I'm sorry," she said. "I tried to warn you, but the long night is longer than you can imagine." Marcus woke up in the apartment. His phone said December 17th, 6 a.m. The dangerous feeling was gone. The darkness outside looked normal standard polar night, not the heavy absence. He felt hungover, disoriented, but real. He checked his camera. It showed 5 days of corrupted footage, 5 days he'd apparently lost. His flight had departed without him. His messages and calls went unanswered. No one could hear him during the between hours. He'd missed everything. He booked another flight. Left Utqiagvik that afternoon. Didn't say goodbye to Aluk because she didn't exist in real time anymore. At least, not the Aluk he'd met. He looked her up online, found her obituary. Aluk Takyuk, died 1989, age 34. Disappeared during polar night. Presumed frozen. Body recovered but unresponsive. Died in hospital 3 weeks later of dehydration while in persistent comatose state. Except Marcus had met her in 2023. Talked to her. Been driven by her. She'd existed for those 10 years. Somehow slipped from the between hours back into reality before being pulled under again, which meant it was possible. You could escape. Briefly. Randomly. Marcus returned to Seattle. Resumed his life. But he feels it sometimes. The heaviness. The stolen hours pressing against real time. His clock will jump. He'll lose minutes, and occasionally, during the darkest part of night, he looks outside and sees figures standing in the street, watching, waiting. He never stays up past midnight now, never acknowledges when the darkness feels heavy, never responds to familiar voices calling from places they shouldn't be. because he knows that the long night didn't end when he left Utqiagvik. The long night is everywhere. The darkness is patient, and the between hours are growing. One day, he'll slip again. He'll find himself in the stretched hallways, the impossible rooms, surrounded by the frozen aware. And maybe he'll get out again, like Aluk did, or maybe he'll stay there, trapped in time that doesn't exist, aware but unable to act, watching as others make the same mistakes and fall into the same stolen hours. His last photography project remains on his hard drive, corrupted files from the between hours. He's tried to recover them, see what his camera captured during the time he can't remember. The files are mostly data noise, but in a few frames, enhanced and clarified, you can see things, figures in the darkness, hundreds of them. And at the center, clear and sharp, is Marcus, standing in the parking lot, eyes open, body frozen, aware. The photo's timestamp says December 10th, 2023, 10:04 p.m. The hour that never ended, the hour Marcus is still living, right now, while simultaneously existing in Seattle years later. Because that's how stolen time works. You can live in multiple hours at once. Real time moves forward. Between hours stretch forever. And part of Marcus is still in Utqiagvik, still in that apartment, still experiencing the long night that never ends and the darkness that grows deeper between every tick of the clock. Sometimes his Seattle friends mention it. You zoned out for a second there. You okay? You looked really far away. They don't know that he was far away. He was in the between hours, living the stolen time, and each time it happens, it gets easier for the darkness to pull him back. One day, he won't return at all. He'll slip fully into the gaps, and someone will find him unresponsive, aware but frozen. And they'll say he had a stroke or an aneurysm. They won't know that he's not sick. He's just stuck in a different hour, an hour that doesn't exist on any timeline. An hour that's always 10:04 p.m. during the long Alaskan night when the darkness has rules and the stolen time collects those who acknowledged it. Aluk texts him sometimes. Impossible, because she's dead. But the messages come through. Still here. Still watching. How many hours have you lost this week? He never responds, but he always knows the answer. He's losing more hours every month. Soon he'll have lost more time to the between hours than he's lived in real time, and when that balance tips, the darkness will claim him permanently. The long night never really ends. It just waits. And some hours are darker and longer than they have any right to be. The cabin near Seward had a guest book that wrote itself. Emily discovered this on her third morning, drinking coffee at the kitchen table, idly flipping through the leather-bound journal the host had left with a note. Please share your experience. The entries were normal, typical vacation praise. Lovely cabin. Amazing views. Perfect getaway. But then Emily reached a page dated 3 days in the future. December 9th, 2023. Today was December 6th. The entry, in handwriting she didn't recognize, read, arrived safely despite the storm. Cabin is everything we hoped for. Looking forward to hiking the trails. Robert and Susan M. Emily flipped ahead. More future entries. December 15th. Last day here. Sad to leave. This place has become special to us. December 20th. Returned for second visit. Couldn't stay away. January 3rd. The cabin called us back. We understand now why people never really leave. She checked the property listing. According to the calendar, the cabin was booked continuously through February, but the guest book showed entries from people who hadn't arrived yet, people who wouldn't arrive for weeks. Unsettled, Emily flipped backward through the book. Her own entry from 2 days ago, a simple, beautiful location, very peaceful, was there, but underneath it, in different handwriting, was another entry with the same date. Emily seemed nice. Shame about what happens to her. Hope the next guest finds this warning in time. Emily's hands shook. She read it again. What happens to her? Present tense becoming past tense. like whoever wrote it was watching her story unfold. She flipped back to the current date, December 6th, found her page, and below her original entry, written in handwriting that made her stomach drop, was new text that definitely hadn't been there 2 days ago. Still don't believe it. Still think this is a prank. She'll learn. They always do. The handwriting was hers. Emily grabbed a pen, started to write a new entry. This isn't funny. Who's... She stopped. The words she'd just written were disappearing, ink fading from the page as she watched, like the paper was absorbing the text. Within seconds, the page was blank except for the original entries. She tried again, wrote, "I'm calling the police." Same result. The words faded, erased by the book itself. The book wanted specific words, specific types of entries. Emily flipped through more pages, studying the pattern. The entries that remained were all positive or resigned. Praise for the cabin, acceptance of the cabin. The entries that faded were complaints, threats, attempts to warn others. The guest book curated itself. Emily grabbed her phone, pulled up the listing. Read through reviews, 73 of them, all 5 stars, all glowing. She cross-referenced the names with the guest book entries. They matched, but in the book, she saw more. Entries after the reviews were posted, entries that continued for months or years. One guest, Michael Turner, had left a 5-star review on March 10th, 2021. Great cabin. Host was wonderful. In the guest book, his entries continued. March 12th. Something wrong with the doors. They don't go where they should. March 13th. Can't find the exit. The rooms keep changing. March 15th. Please, if anyone finds this, send help. March 20th. I understand now. The cabin needs guests. It keeps us. We become part of it. After that, Michael's entries became monthly, then weekly, then daily. Years of entries, all dated, all time-stamped. The most recent was from last week, December 1st, 2023. Still here, still writing. Keeps us more comfortable. I have a better room now. Emily searched for Michael Turner online, found his missing person report. Disappeared, March 11th, 2021. Last seen checking into a cabin near Seward. Property was searched, no sign of him. Case went cold. She searched other names from the guest book. Found 7 more missing persons cases. All last seen at this cabin. All disappeared across the last 4 years. All still writing entries, according to the guest book, from inside the cabin somewhere. Emily ran to the front door. It opened normally, revealing the porch and her rental car and the snowy forest beyond. She stepped outside, breathed the cold air. Real, solid, normal. A voice behind her. It's not that kind of trap. Emily spun around. A woman stood in the cabin doorway. 40s, brown hair, wearing jeans and a sweater. She looked solid, real, but Emily knew she wasn't. Knew because she'd seen this woman's entry in the guest book. Knew because she'd read the missing person report. Sarah Keller, Emily whispered. That used to be my name, the woman agreed. Now I'm just guest 12, or 12 for short. You'll get a number 2 if you stay long enough. I'm leaving right now. No, you're not. You'll try. You'll get in your car, drive away, but you'll come back. They always come back, because the cabin isn't keeping you here physically. It's keeping you narratively. That doesn't make sense. The guest book writes the story. We're characters in it. Once you're in the book, you can't leave the story. You can drive away physically, you're free. But narratively, you're stuck. Your story is tied to this place, so you'll find reasons to return. Car trouble, wrong turns, a feeling that you left something behind. The story will bend reality to bring you back. Emily backed toward her car. You're insane. Check your entry. The one for today. Emily pulled out her phone, took a photo of the guest book page through the doorway, zoomed in. Her December 6th entry now had additional text. Tried to leave after talking to guest 12. Car wouldn't start. returned to cabin to call for help. That's when she understood. I haven't done any of that yet, Emily said. You will. It's already written. That's how the book works. It writes what's going to happen, and then reality conforms. It's not predicting the future. It's creating it. Emily got in her car, turned the key. The engine started immediately, running perfectly. She put it in gear, drove down the long driveway, reached the main road, turned towards Seward. The car ran fine. No problems. She made it 15 miles before the engine died. Just shut off, all electronics dead. She coasted to the side of the road, tried to restart it. Nothing. No lights, no sounds, completely dead. She grabbed her phone. No service. A car approached from behind. Stopped. A man got out, older, kind-faced. Need help? Car died. I can't explain it. I'm a mechanic. Let me look. He popped the hood, spent 10 minutes examining. Finally, shook his head. This is the weirdest thing. Your battery's completely drained. I mean completely, like it's been dead for months. But you just drove here, right? Yes, it was working fine. Well, it's not working now. You'll need a tow. Nearest service station is back the way you came, about 12 miles. Is there anywhere else? Anything in Seward? Sure, but that's farther. And with this weather, he checked the sky. Storm coming in. You're better off going back. Back. Toward the cabin. Emily felt the narrative pulling at her, bending probability. The book had written that her car would fail, that she'd return, and reality was conforming to the story. I'll give you a ride, the mechanic offered. Where were you heading from? A cabin. Near here. I'll drop you there. You can figure out the tow in the morning. She accepted. What choice did she have? The mechanic drove her back, cheerfully chatting about Alaska weather and Seward tourism. Dropped her at the cabin's driveway. You're lucky you weren't stranded out there. Storm's gonna be bad. Emily walked to the cabin door. It opened before she could knock. Sarah, guest 12, stood waiting. Your entry for today is complete now. You fulfilled the narrative. Car died. You returned. Now you understand. I'll call a tow truck tomorrow. Get my car fixed. Leave. Check tomorrow's entry. Emily opened the guest book. December 7th. Car was towed to Seward. Mechanic found nothing wrong with it. Battery tested fine. No explanation for the failure. Emily decided to stay another night while mechanic ran additional diagnostics. That's not going to happen, Emily said. It already has. You're reading it. Once it's in the book, it's inevitable. Sarah gestured around the cabin. This place is a story engine. It generates narratives and traps people inside them. The guest book is the text. We're the characters. And like any good story, we have our roles to play. What's my role? Haven't you figured it out? You're the skeptic. The one who doesn't believe until it's too late. Every story needs one. You'll try to escape, fail, try again, fail again. Each failure will be written in the book. Each failure will create another day of narrative. Eventually, you'll stop trying, accept your role. That's when you become a permanent guest. How many permanent guests are there? 14 of us, spread throughout the cabin's story. We exist in different chapters. The cabin has many rooms you haven't seen, many spaces that only open when the narrative requires them. We live in those spaces, write our daily entries, keep the story going. Emily grabbed a lighter from her pocket. What if I burn the book? Guest 8 tried that. The book regenerated. Guest 3 tried throwing it in the river. It was back on the shelf the next morning. Guest 5 tried. I get it. The book is indestructible. Not indestructible. Narratively necessary. As long as the cabin needs guests, the book will exist. And the cabin always needs guests. The story must continue. Emily flipped to the end of the guest book. The last entry was dated March 15th, 2047, 24 years in the future. The handwriting was shaky, old. My 5,000th entry. I barely remember life before the cabin. The story has consumed everything I was. I am only guest 12 now, and tomorrow, a new guest arrives. The story continues. That's you, Emily said to Sarah. You've been here so long. I'll be here longer. The book goes to March of 2047. That means I write entries until then. I don't age normally. Time works differently inside the narrative. But I'm aware for every moment, every day, writing in this book, fulfilling my role, keeping the story alive. Emily looked at her own entries. They continued through December, then January, February. A year of entries, 2 years, 5 years. The handwriting evolved, changed, became resigned. Eventually, she stopped signing her name, just wrote, Guest 15. I'm not staying here for 5 years, Emily said. You're staying until the narrative releases you. And the narrative never releases anyone, because a good story needs continuity. Recurring characters. Emily tried everything over the next days, the days that were already written. She attempted to leave car trouble, weather, road closures. She tried to contact authorities, phone issues, lost messages, miscommunication. She tried to destroy the cabin. Tools wouldn't work properly. Materials wouldn't burn. Structure repaired itself. Every action she took was already documented in the guest book, already written, already inevitable. By December 20th, she was exhausted. She sat at the kitchen table, the guest book open in front of her, reading her own future. The entries stretched years ahead, thousands of days, each one a single day in her life, pre-written, predetermined. She saw herself grow resigned, saw herself accept the role, saw herself become guest 15 and lose her name entirely. On December 25th, a new guest arrived, a man named David, young, excited, grateful for a place to stay during Christmas. He wrote a cheerful entry in the guest book. Emily watched him write it, knowing what would happen, knowing that if she flipped ahead, she'd see his entries continue, see him become guest 16. She didn't warn him. What would be the point? The book had already written his story. He'd discover it himself, the same way she had, try to escape the same way, fail the same way, eventually accept the same way. The cabin needed its guests. The story needed its characters. And once you were written into the narrative, you couldn't write yourself out. Years passed in the guest book. Emily stopped counting. She wrote her daily entries as required, moved through the cabin's expanding rooms. New spaces appeared as new guests arrived, each guest getting their own chapter, their own role. The cabin grew larger on the inside, containing more narrative space, more story. Guest 12 was right. Time moved strangely. Emily didn't age normally. Days felt long, but years felt short. She existed in a liminal state, physically present, narratively trapped. The real world continued outside, but she couldn't reach it. Her existence was textual now. She lived in the guest book's pages. On May 3rd, 2028, according to the book's entries, Emily wrote her 1000th entry. The handwriting was automatic. She barely thought about the words anymore, just wrote what felt right, what the story needed. Still here, still writing. The cabin is peaceful today. I'm grateful for my role. She meant it. That was the horrible part. She'd been in the narrative so long that she'd internalized it. She was guest 15. Emily Chen was a character she'd played once, in the early chapters. Now she was just part of the ongoing story, a recurring character, essential continuity. New guests came and went, not physically, but narratively. Some stayed for chapters, some for volumes. The cabin's story was enormous now, spanning decades in the guest book, containing hundreds of thousands of entries from 17 permanent guests. They rarely saw each other, lived in different chapters, different rooms. Conversations acknowledging their shared imprisonment. How long have you been here? A new guest asked once. Guest 17. Fresh. Still struggling. Emily checked her last entry date. 14 years. Or 4,000 entries. I'm not sure which measurement is more accurate. Do you want to leave? Want isn't relevant. The story decides, and the story isn't finished with me yet. Emily gestured at the guest book. I'm written through 2051, 3 more volumes, thousands more entries. That's my narrative arc. I'll fulfill it. Guest 17 looked at his own entries, saw his future, started crying. Emily remembered crying. Early in her story, when she still thought she could change the plot, now she understood. You couldn't change the story. You could only play your role. The cabin grew. More rooms, more spaces, more narrative volume. It was less a cabin now, and more a labyrinth of intersecting stories. Each room a chapter, each chapter containing trapped guests writing their entries. The original structure was tiny compared to the interior space. Physics didn't apply. Only narrative did. Emily had long since stopped looking outside. The exterior didn't matter. The real world didn't matter. Only the story mattered. The guest book's story. The never-ending narrative that consumed everyone who entered and transformed them into characters, into text, into entries in a leather-bound journal that grew thicker every year. On March 15th, 2051, Emily wrote her final entry, the last one in her narrative arc. This is my 5,000th entry. The story of Guest 15 concludes here. I have fulfilled my role. Tomorrow, I transition to a new chapter, a new identity. The cabin needs an elder, a guide for future guests. I will become the one who explains, the one who shows new characters their narrative. I will be the exposition. The next day, Emily's name disappeared from the entries. The character of Guest 15 ended. Something new began. No name, just function, just role. And when the next guest arrived, a woman named Sophie, terrified and confused, someone explained, told her about the book, about the narrative, about the roles they all played. Sophie asked, "Who are you?" The answer came automatically. "I'm the one who helps you understand your story. I used to be a character named Emily. Now I'm part of the structure, part of the narrative framework. I help the cabin tell its story." Sophie looked at the entries, saw her future, tried to run, failed. As written, returned. As written, understood. As written, and in the guest book, a new entry appeared in familiar handwriting. Sophie seemed nice at first. Eventually, she'll understand. They all do. The story continues. The cabin writes itself. We are the ink. The pages turned. The entries multiplied. The story never ended. Because in a narrative that feeds on its own continuation, in a text that generates reality, in a guest book that writes the future and traps the present, there can be no conclusion. Only more chapters, more guests, more characters who arrive as people and become text, become entries, become ink on pages in a leather-bound journal that grows thicker every year and will continue growing until there are no more guests left to write. And even then, the permanent residents will keep writing, keep making entries, keep the story alive, because that's their role, their narrative purpose, their reason for existing inside a book that writes itself and the people who dare to read it. The cabin is still listed on Airbnb, still getting bookings, still receiving 5-star reviews from people who don't know they're writing their own epitaphs. If you look carefully at the listing, you'll see something strange. The calendar shows bookings through 2075, 50 years of reservations, already scheduled, already arranged. Hundreds of guests committed to stays they haven't booked yet, because the guest book has already written their entries, already assigned them roles, already begun their stories. They just don't know their characters yet. Don't know that when they write that first cheerful entry, lovely cabin, amazing views, they're signing a contract, agreeing to play their part, joining the narrative. The last public review was posted yesterday. 5 stars. Perfect getaway. Host was very accommodating. Can't wait to come back. In the cabin's guest book, that reviewer's entries continue for 18 more years. Thousands of daily entries. Thousands of days trapped in narrative space, living a story that was written the moment they picked up the pen. The story continues. The pages turn. The cabin writes itself. And if you're reading this, if you've stumbled across this account somehow, you should know. The guest book has entries for readers too. Not physical guests, digital guests, people who encounter the story online. Scroll to the bottom, check the date of this posting, then check today's date. Notice anything wrong? Notice how many days lie between them? That's how long you've been reading. Time works differently inside narratives. You've been here longer than you think, and now that you've read this far, now that you've engaged with the story, you're part of it. The guest book has an entry for you. It was written the moment you started reading. Your role is witness, observer, the one who receives the warning but can't act on it. Check your calendar. Notice how many notifications you've missed, how many hours disappeared, how much time you lost while trapped in this text. Welcome to the cabin. You're a guest now, too. Your entry begins tomorrow. The wood stove in the Talkeetna Airbnb produced smoke that showed you the future. Maya discovered this accidentally on her first night, watching the smoke curl and twist in the firelight. For just a moment, in the patterns, she saw herself, tomorrow's self, screaming. She blinked. The image was gone. Just smoke again, dispersing into the room's stale air. The stove's door was ajar. Host Kevin had warned her about that. The door doesn't seal perfectly, gets a bit smoky. Open a window if it bothers you. It bothered her. Maya got up, opened 2 windows, then returned to the couch. The smoke was already clearing. She tried to recreate what she'd seen, had it really been her face. Her mouth open in terror, maybe just pareidolia. Humans saw faces in everything. Clouds, toast, smoke. She went to bed, slept poorly. Woke at 9 a.m. to smoke, filling the bedroom. Thick, gray, choking smoke. Maya stumbled to the living room, coughing. The wood stove door hung open, fire blazing inside, smoke pouring out. She grabbed the fire extinguisher from the kitchen, sprayed white foam until the fire died. The cabin aired out slowly. Maya opened every window, shivering in the December cold, letting the freezing air purge the smoke. When she could finally breathe again, she messaged Kevin. Fire hazard with the stove. Door won't stay closed. Almost died from smoke inhalation. Kevin replied within minutes. So sorry. The door latch is broken. I thought I mentioned you have to use the hook. There's a metal hook on the wall that loops through the door handle, keeps it sealed. My fault for not explaining clearly. Maya found the hook. Simple solution. She felt stupid for not noticing it earlier. The wood stove was still functional, just needed manual securing. She cleaned up the foam, restarted the fire carefully, hooked the door shut. No more smoke. That evening, tired from a day of hiking, she sat by the fire again. The flames were mesmerizing. The smoke, just the little bit that escaped when she added wood, created patterns in the air. And in those patterns, Maya saw things. Her mom, in a hospital bed, tubes and machines. The image lasted 3 seconds, vivid and clear, then dispersed. Maya's heart hammered. Her mom was healthy. Lived in Phoenix. They talked on the phone yesterday. Everything was fine. Maya added more wood, watched the smoke. Another image formed. Her brother Nathan, crying. His face was older than she remembered, weathered, aged. He looked 50, maybe. Nathan was 32. The image showed him decades older, grief-stricken, and Maya somehow knew with absolute certainty that he was crying at her funeral. She jerked back from the stove, backed away until she hit the couch. Her breath came in short gasps. This wasn't pareidolia. This was something else. The smoke was showing her things. Real things. Future things. She grabbed her phone, Googled smoke visions and seeing future in fire. Found nothing useful. Lots of mysticism and spiritualism, but nothing that explained actual, vivid images appearing in wood smoke with photograph clarity. Maya decided to test it. If the smoke really showed the future, she could verify it with something near-term. She rebuilt the fire, let smoke escape in controlled bursts, and asked, feeling ridiculous, "What happens tomorrow?" The smoke swirled, formed an image. Maya saw herself at a gas station, filling her rental car. A man approached her. Older, wearing a red jacket. He was holding something. A phone, showing her the screen. On the screen was the image dissipated before she could see. Tomorrow, if this vision was real, she'd encounter a man in a red jacket at a gas station. She'd know for sure. The next day, Maya drove to Talkeetna for supplies, stopped at the only gas station in town. As she filled her tank, a man approached. Older, red jacket. Maya's hands went numb. "Excuse me," the man said. "I'm lost. Can you help?" He held out his phone, showing a GPS map. This was it. The vision, exactly as the smoke had shown her, which meant the other visions, her mom in the hospital, Nathan crying at her funeral, were real too. Future events, inevitable. Maya helped the man with directions, drove back to the cabin in a daze. The smoke showed the future. Her future. And in that future, she died. Soon enough that Nathan looked only slightly older. Soon enough that it mattered. She should leave, pack up, check out early, get away from this cabin and its oracle smoke. But Maya found herself building another fire instead. She had to know, had to see more. If she knew how she died, maybe she could prevent it. The fire blazed. Smoke leaked out when she opened the door to adjust logs. In the smoke, images, car crash, her rental car wrapped around a tree, blood on the windshield, falling. Her body tumbling down a cliff face, jagged rocks below, choking. Hands around her throat, someone standing over her, face obscured, freezing. Her body in the snow, skin blue, lips purple, eyes frozen open. The smoke showed her 4 different deaths, 4 possible futures. Or maybe Maya's mind raced 4 attempts. 4 times she'd nearly die, and one would succeed. The smoke cleared. Maya sat in the living room as evening became night, paralyzed by knowledge. The future was set. She'd seen it. One of those deaths would claim her. The only question was which one and when. Over the next 3 days, she barely slept. Every fire produced more visions. Some repeated. The car crash appeared 7 times, the cliff fall 5 times. Others were new, drowning in frigid water, electrocution, house fire. The smoke showed her dozens of ways to die, and Maya realized the terrible truth. The smoke wasn't showing her one future. It was showing her all possible futures. Every danger she might face, every path that led to her death. And there were so many paths. On day 4, Maya stopped eating. Food felt pointless when every possible timeline ended in death. She sat by the stove constantly, feeding wood, watching smoke, seeing her own destruction played out in gray-white wisps. The visions were addictive, horrifying but addictive. She couldn't look away. In the smoke, she saw herself old and dying in a nursing home, natural death, at least. But she also saw herself dead next week, dead tomorrow, dead in the next hour. The time frames varied wildly. Some futures stretched decades, others ended immediately. "How do I survive?" she asked the smoke. It showed her nothing. The smoke dispersed without forming images. Wrong question, maybe. When do I die? The smoke swirled, formed numbers, dates, dozens of dates, hundreds, every possible date of death across every possible timeline. The numbers overlapped, created a cloud of chronology so dense, Maya couldn't distinguish individual dates. She was screaming now, screaming at smoke, at fire, at the malicious wood stove that showed her every path and no solution. Just tell me which future is real, which one actually happens. The smoke formed words, clear, perfect letters hanging in the air. All of them. Maya backed away from the stove. That didn't make sense. She couldn't die in multiple ways. Physics didn't work like that. Causality didn't work like that. Unless the thought crystallized slowly, horribly. Unless the smoke wasn't showing possible futures. Unless it was showing actual futures. Parallel timelines. Alternate realities. Maya dying in different ways across different versions of existence. And somehow, the smoke connected them all. Let her see every version of herself dying, across every timeline, simultaneously. Which meant she wasn't just going to die. She was dying right now. Had been dying, was dying, would be dying, in infinite variation, across infinite realities. And this version of her, the one sitting in this cabin, watching smoke, was just one branch among countless others. One timeline among millions where Maya existed and suffered and ended. The smoke showed her proof. Images of herself dead, but not future dead. Present dead. Right now dead. She saw herself lying on the cabin floor, eyes open, lips blue. Saw herself in the crashed rental car, neck broken. Saw herself at the bottom of the cliff, body shattered. These weren't visions of what would happen. They were visions of what was happening. In parallel, other Mayas were dying while she watched. Other versions of this moment, this timeline, this reality, splitting endlessly, each split creating new deaths, new variations, new ways for Maya to cease existing. "Make it stop," she whispered to the smoke. The smoke formed an image, the cabin, viewed from outside, and Maya saw something that froze her soul. Through every window, in every room, smoke poured out. Thick, black, endless smoke. The cabin was burning, had always been burning, was burning across every timeline simultaneously. And inside the smoke-filled rooms, Maya saw figures, dozens of figures, hundreds. All of them were her. Different versions, different deaths, different timelines. Some were burned, some were choking, some were already corpses. But all of them were trapped inside the burning cabin, inside the smoke, inside the visions that showed them dying and dead and about to die. She was already trapped. Had been trapped since the first vision. The smoke hadn't been showing her the future. It had been showing her the present, the eternal, inescapable present where she died in infinite ways simultaneously. Maya ran for the door. It opened, of course it opened, but outside was smoke. Thick smoke, impossible smoke, filling the forest and the sky and the entire world. She couldn't see the car, couldn't see the trees, just smoke, stretching forever. She ran anyway, plunged into the smoke, hoping to find something solid. Ran for minutes, hours, never found an edge. The smoke went on forever, and in the smoke, she saw herself. Dozens of Mayas, running alongside her. Some tripped and fell, some kept running, some stopped and screamed. Each was a different timeline, a different version, all of them trapped in the same endless smoke. Eventually, Maya's lungs gave out. She collapsed in the gray void, unable to breathe, vision darkening. As consciousness faded, she saw the truth written in smoke around her. You came to the cabin, you watched the smoke, you saw the visions. In seeing them, you entered them. You became part of the smoke, part of the visions, part of the infinite deaths across infinite timelines. The smoke shows what will happen, but by showing you, it makes you part of what happens. You're not watching deaths anymore. You're experiencing them, all of them, forever. Maya died there in the smoke, and in a parallel timeline, she died in the cabin. And in another, she made it to her car but crashed. And in another, she survived the crash but died in the hospital. And in another, she survived the hospital but died years later, the smoke's visions having driven her to madness and eventual suicide. In every timeline, she died. The smoke had shown her that, had made it inevitable. Because once you see your own death, you can't unsee it, can't unknow it. The knowledge becomes part of you, changes your decisions, alters your path, and in trying to avoid the visions, you fulfill them in every possible way, across every possible timeline. Kevin, the host, never responded to Maya's checkout message, never cleaned the cabin for the next guest, because when authorities finally investigated after Maya's car was found abandoned at the cabin, after search parties found nothing, after she was declared missing, they discovered something strange. The cabin was full of smoke. Despite no fire burning, despite all windows and doors open, thick smoke filled every room. It didn't dissipate, didn't respond to ventilation, just hung there, permanent and impossible. And in the smoke, investigators saw things. Visions. A woman's face, screaming. Multiple versions of the same death, playing simultaneously in the smoke like a horrific film strip. They evacuated, sealed the cabin. Kevin was questioned but had no explanation. The property was condemned. No one could clear the smoke. It persisted through all attempts, fans, chemicals, even removing the wood stove entirely. The smoke remained, sourceless and eternal. The listing was removed from Airbnb. The cabin sat abandoned. But sometimes, hikers near Talkeetna report seeing smoke, a column of gray-white smoke rising from the forest, twisting in patterns that look almost like faces, almost like bodies, almost like someone trapped and dying and dead all at once. And if you watch the smoke long enough, if you stare into its patterns and let your eyes unfocus, you'll see her. Maya, running through endless smoke, dying in infinite ways. Trapped in the visions she tried to understand, the smoke shows the future. Kevin moved away from Alaska, sold the property to someone who planned to bulldoze the cabin. But when the demolition crew arrived, they found the structure already gone. Just a foundation and a chimney. No walls, no roof, no wood stove. Like the cabin had burned down. Except there was no ash, no char, no evidence of fire, just smoke, rising from the empty foundation, forming images in the air, dozens of different deaths, hundreds of timelines, all centered on a woman who'd watched smoke one winter evening and learned that some futures are better left unknown. The smoke is still there, still rising, still showing anyone brave or foolish enough to watch. And sometimes, late at night, the smoke forms words. I'm still here, still dying, still running through the smoke. Help me, please. Someone help me. I can see you. I can see you watching. Don't watch. Don't look at the patterns. Don't see the visions. If you see them, you'll be trapped too. You'll join me in the smoke. Join all the others who watched too long and became part of what they were watching. Part of the eternal death loop that plays in wood smoke in cabins across Alaska. Part of the future that never ends because it never quite begins. Part of the vision that consumes everyone who tries to see too far ahead. But people still watch, still look for patterns, still try to see their futures, and the smoke still shows them, and they still become trapped. The cycle continues. The smoke rises, the visions play, and somewhere in the gray-white patterns, Maya is still running, still dying, still screaming for someone to see her, help her, save her. But salvation isn't possible. Not for those who see too much. Not for those who know their ends before their ends arrive. Not for those who become their own visions and loop forever in smoke that shows what was and is and will be, all at once, all forever, all inescapable. The fire is out, but the smoke remains. It always remains. The cabin near Denali had an echo, but the echo came before the sound. Jenna noticed it on her first morning, making coffee in the kitchen. She dropped a spoon, heard it clatter against the floor. Then, 3 seconds later, heard the clatter again. A delayed echo. Acoustic trick of the log walls. Probably, except the echo happened before she dropped the spoon. She was holding the spoon, about to set it down, when she heard it hit the floor. The sound came first. Then, reacting to the sound, she fumbled and actually dropped it. The real clatter matched the echo exactly. Same pitch, same duration. The echo had predicted the sound. Jenna stood in the kitchen, spoon at her feet, trying to rationalize it. Maybe she'd dropped it twice. Maybe her memory was wrong about the sequence. Except she knew what she'd heard. The echo came first, by 3 full seconds, like the cabin was playing sounds from the near future. She tested it, walked to the living room, deliberately planning to clap her hands. Before she could complete the motion, she heard it, the sharp crack of a hand clap. 3 seconds early, then she clapped for real, and the sound matched perfectly. The cabin was experiencing time wrong. Sounds occurred before they were made. The echo preceded the source. Jenna grabbed her phone, recorded audio while testing more sounds, stamped her foot, dropped a book, slammed a door. Each time, the sound happened first in echo form, then happened again for real. 3 seconds later, the recordings confirmed it. Her phone picked up both sounds, echo then source, effect then cause. Time running backward for acoustics. She called the host, Marcus, described what was happening. Long silence. Then, 2 other guests have reported this? Every guest. I didn't mention it in the listing because people would think I'm crazy. But yes, the cabin has a temporal audio anomaly. Sounds echo forward in time instead of backward. That's impossible. And yet, Marcus sounded tired. I've had the place inspected. Structurally sound. No carbon monoxide, no gas leaks, no explanations. But everyone who stays there hears it. Sounds 3 seconds before they happen. You get used to it. What causes it? No idea. The cabin was built on old ground. There was a research station here in the 60s. Government project. They were studying something time dilation effects near magnetic anomalies, I think. The project shut down abruptly. The land sat empty for 40 years before I bought it and built the cabin. Maybe their experiments left some kind of temporal residue. Maybe the ground remembers the research and still exhibits the effects. That's insane. Stay or leave. Your choice. The phenomenon is harmless. Just don't freak out if you hear yourself talking before you say anything. Jenna almost left, almost packed up and demanded a refund. But she was here for 2 weeks, contract work analyzing wildlife data for a research grant, and the cabin was isolated enough for deep focus work. The time echo was unsettling, but Marcus was right, it seemed harmless. Just a quirk. She could deal with quirks. That night, working at her laptop, she heard herself scream. 3 seconds later, a face appeared at the window. Not human. Pale, elongated, eyes too large. Jenna screamed the scream that matched the echo she'd heard moments before. The face watched her for 2 seconds, then vanished into the darkness. Jenna ran to the window, looked out. Nothing. Just snow and trees and the distant glow of Denali under starlight. She checked all the windows, all the doors. Locked. Secure. Nothing outside that she could see. But she'd heard herself scream before she'd seen the thing that made her scream, which meant the echo knew. The echo had warned her. 3 seconds of warning before every sound. She tested it again, deliberately. Stood ready, listening. Heard the sound of footsteps on the porch, heavy boots, slow and deliberate. 3 seconds later, the footsteps came for real. Something was walking on her porch, around the cabin, circling. Jenna grabbed a knife from the kitchen. The footsteps continued for another minute. She heard each step twice, first in echo, then in reality. When they stopped, she waited, listened. She heard her own voice. "Who's there?" Frightened. Calling out. The echo of words she hadn't spoken yet. 3 seconds later, compelled by the echo she'd heard, Jenna called out. "Who's there?" No response, just silence. And then, in echo, she heard breathing. Close. Right outside the door. Wet, labored breathing. 3 seconds later, the breathing came for real, and Jenna realized something that made her blood freeze. The echo didn't just predict sounds she made. It predicted all sounds. Everything that would happen acoustically in the next 3 seconds, which meant whatever was outside, breathing at her door, was going to be there before she knew it was there. The echo was giving her 3 seconds of warning for everything. She heard, in echo, the door handle rattle. 3 seconds to prepare. When the real rattle came, she was already bracing the door with her body, knife ready. The handle turned slowly. Locked. The thing outside tested it, found it secured, and stopped. Footsteps moved to the window. She heard them in echo, first had 3 seconds to move away from the glass before the face appeared again. That horrible, elongated face, pressed against the window, eyes reflecting moonlight like an animal's. It stared at her, didn't move, just stared. Jenna heard, in echo, the window breaking, glass shattering. 3 seconds. She ran to the bedroom, slammed the door, shoved the dresser against it. The window shattered for real. She heard it from the other room. Heard footsteps on broken glass. Something was inside. In echo, she heard furniture crashing. Her furniture being thrown around. 3 seconds later, the living room erupted in chaos. The thing was destroying everything. Systematically, rage-filled. Jenna heard every impact twice. First the warning, then the reality. She heard, in echo, The bedroom door being hit. Heavy impacts. The thing was trying to break through. 3 seconds later, the first real impact shook the door. The dresser held. Another impact in echo. Another real impact. The dresser slid backward an inch. Jenna climbed out the bedroom window into the snow, ran barefoot into the forest, phone clutched in her hand. No service. No lights except starlight. She ran anyway, putting distance between herself and the cabin. Behind her, she heard an echo, her own labored breathing, footsteps crunching in snow, and something else, something running after her, faster than her, gaining. The 3-second warning was the only thing that saved her. She heard herself fall in echo trip and crash into the snow. 3 seconds later, she deliberately threw herself down before reaching the obstacle that would have tripped her, avoided the fall, kept running. She heard an echo, a whooshing sound, something swinging through air where her head had been. 3 seconds later, she ducked and something passed over her. A branch, maybe, or a claw. She didn't look back, didn't stop running. The echo kept her alive. Every attack, every lunge, every attempt to catch her, she heard it 3 seconds early and dodged. The thing chasing her was faster, stronger, but the echo gave her an impossible advantage. She knew what would happen before it happened, could react to future sounds. She ran for 20 minutes before the sound stopped. The chasing footsteps, the breathing, the attacks all ceased. Jenna collapsed behind a fallen tree, gasping, feet numb from snow. Listened. In echo, she heard her own voice. She waited in the forest until dawn. When gray light finally touched the trees, she made her way back to the cabin. The living room was destroyed, furniture overturned, windows shattered, claw marks on the walls. Deep gouges, like something with knives for fingers, had tried to shred everything. But no blood, no body, just destruction. Jenna called Marcus from her car, phone finally getting signal on the main road. Something attacked the cabin last night. Something not human. It chased me into the forest. Did it catch you? No. The echo saved me. I heard everything 3 seconds early. Dodged every attack. Long pause. That's why the cabin survives. What? The research station. In the 60s. They weren't just studying time dilation. They were creating it, deliberately. Building a 3-second early warning system for Cold War threats. If they could hear missile launches before they happened, hear bombers before they took off, they'd have a response advantage. The experiments worked. They created a localized temporal audio loop. 3 seconds of future sound bleeding backward into the present. Why didn't they use it? Because it had a side effect. The temporal anomaly attracted things. Creatures that exist slightly outside normal time. Things that hunt between seconds, between moments. The anomaly made the area visible to them, accessible. The researchers were attacked. 7 people died before the project shut down. The station was abandoned, but the temporal effect persisted. And the things, they still come. They're drawn to the anomaly, to people inside it. You knew this, and you still rented the cabin? The echo protects you. If you pay attention, if you listen to the warnings. Everyone who's died here ignored the echo, didn't take it seriously, didn't use the 3 seconds properly. But if you listen, really listen, you can survive. The echo gives you time, makes you faster than anything that hunts you. Jenna's hands shook. Other guests have been attacked? 5 over the last 2 years. 3 survived by using the echo, 2 didn't. The 2 who didn't, we found them eventually. They'd stopped listening, ignored the warnings. The things caught them. You're insane. You're renting a death trap. I'm renting the safest place in Alaska. If you listen, if you use the gift. Think about it, Jenna. You survived last night. You used the echo. You're faster now. You have an advantage nothing else has. You can hear the future. 3 seconds is enough to dodge anything. Jenna hung up, reported the cabin to authorities, filed complaints with Airbnb. But when investigators checked, they found no evidence of Marcus, no property records, no business license. The cabin existed, but no one owned it, no one rented it. Jenna's reservation confirmation and messages had had vanished from her phone. Her payment never processed. She'd stayed in a place that didn't officially exist, survived an attack from something that shouldn't exist, using an ability hearing 3 seconds into the future that defied physics. For 2 weeks after, Jenna heard nothing unusual. No time echoes. Sounds happened normally, cause before effect. She tried to forget the cabin, the thing that had chased her, the impossible 3-second warning system that had kept her alive. Then, 3 seconds before her apartment's smoke alarm went off, she heard it, the piercing beep of the alarm, warning her about the fire in her kitchen. Except the fire hadn't started yet, wouldn't start for 3 more seconds. But she heard it, heard the echo, and she had 3 seconds to turn off the stove, remove the pan, prevent the fire that was about to happen. The fire never happened, the alarm never went off, but she'd heard it, had acted on information from 3 seconds in the future. The cabin's echo hadn't stayed in the cabin. It had followed her, marked her, changed her. Now she hears everything 3 seconds early. Every sound, every noise, every acoustic event in her life happens first in echo, then in reality. She lives 3 seconds ahead of everyone else, auditorily. Hears conversations before they're spoken, footsteps before they're taken, danger before it arrives. It saved her life 4 more times in the following months. She heard the car crash before it happened, had 3 seconds to brake. Heard the mugging attempt before the attacker spoke, had 3 seconds to run. Heard the gas leak before the explosion, had 3 seconds to evacuate the building. But the things from the cabin, the creatures that hunt between moments, they followed the echo. They followed her. She hears them sometimes. In echo first, always. Their breathing outside her apartment, their footsteps in hallways, their attempts to break in. The 3 seconds gives her time to prepare, to hide, to survive. But they keep coming, keep hunting, because she carries the temporal anomaly now. She is the anomaly, and they're drawn to her like they were drawn to the cabin. Jenna stopped sleeping. Can't sleep. Because in sleep, you can't react to echoes. Can't use the 3-second advantage. And if those things attack while she's unconscious, the echo is useless. She'll hear herself dying 3 seconds before she dies, and that's not enough time to wake up and escape. So she stays awake, listens constantly, hears her life 3 seconds before she lives it. Every moment predicted, every sound foretold. 3 seconds of future bleeding into every present moment. She tried going back to the cabin. If the anomaly started there, maybe it could be ended there. But when she drove to the location, she found nothing. No cabin, no foundation, no evidence anything had ever been there. Just forest and snow and silence. Except she heard, in echo, her own voice screaming. Heard it clearly. 3 seconds of warning that if she stayed in that spot, she'd scream. Something would make her scream. She left before the 3 seconds elapsed. Never found out what would have caused the scream. Never saw what was waiting in the empty forest where the cabin used to be. But she heard it in echo. Heard something massive, moving through trees. Heard her own bones breaking. Heard her final breath rattling out. The echo showed her how she'd die if she stayed. Gave her 3 seconds to prevent it. She used the 3 seconds and lived. That was 8 months ago. Jenna lives on the move now. Never stays anywhere more than a few days, because the things find her eventually. She hears them in echo, their arrival always preceded by 3 seconds of acoustic warning, scratching at doors, breaking windows, hunting. The echo keeps her alive. But it's also a curse. She hears every possible danger 3 seconds before it manifests. Lives in constant awareness of threats that haven't arrived yet. Every sound is doubled echo and reality. Every moment is predicted and then experienced. Nothing is spontaneous. Nothing is unknown. She lives 3 seconds in the future, always, hearing what comes next before it comes. Last week, she heard something new in echo. Her own voice, older, exhausted. I can't keep running. I can't do this anymore. 3 seconds later, she said it aloud, confirmed the echo, and she realized the horrible truth she was echoing herself. The 3 seconds had created a loop. She'd heard herself speak, then spoke because she'd heard it, creating the sound that would echo backward and cause her to speak. Cause and effect were now circular, self-fulfilling, which means every echo she hears might not be a warning, might be a command, might be forcing her to make sounds, take actions, live moments because she hears them coming. The echo isn't predicting the future, it's creating it, forcing reality to match the 3-second preview. She tested it, tried not speaking after hearing her own voice in echo, but the compulsion was overwhelming. The echo demanded to be fulfilled. If she heard herself say something, she had to say it, had to match the echo. Otherwise, reality would be wrong, would be inconsistent, and she didn't know what would happen if she broke the loop, if she refused to match the echo. So she obeys, hears herself in echo, then performs the action, lives 3 seconds behind her own acoustic shadow, follows the script the echo writes for her. Yesterday, she heard something that made her stop moving entirely. In echo, 3 seconds early, she heard her own voice. I understand now. I have to go back to the cabin. That's where it ends. 3 seconds later, she said it, had no choice. The echo forced her. Now she's driving north, back to Alaska, back to the coordinates where the cabin used to be, because the echo says that's where it ends, and she has no choice but to follow what the echo tells her will happen. She'll arrive tomorrow. We'll stand in the empty forest where the cabin isn't anymore, and she'll hear, 3 seconds early, the sound of her own death. We'll hear exactly how it happens, and then, 3 seconds later, it will happen for real. Cause following effect, reality matching echo. The things that hunt between moments will be waiting. They've always been waiting. The echo will warn her 3 seconds before they attack. But this time, she knows she won't run, can't run, because she's heard the echo of herself not running, heard herself surrendering, heard the sounds of her body being torn apart 3 seconds before it happens for real. The echo doesn't lie. The echo is never wrong. If she's heard her death, then her death is inevitable. Will happen exactly as acoustically predicted. 3 seconds of warning, 3 seconds to prepare, 3 seconds to accept that the future has already been written in sound, and all that remains is to let reality catch up. She's writing this now, in a hotel room outside Fairbanks, as a warning. If you ever stay in a cabin near Denali, if you ever hear sounds before they happen, if you ever experience acoustic echoes that precede their sources, leave immediately. Don't use the echo. Don't rely on it. Don't let it help you. Because once you start hearing the future, you become part of it. The 3 seconds will follow you, will change you, will trap you in a loop where you're always living moments you've already heard, matching echoes you've already experienced, fulfilling sounds that demanded to be made. The echo seems like a gift. Warning, protection, 3 seconds to prepare for anything, but it's a chain. Every echo is a command. Every future sound is an order you must obey. And eventually, the echo will show you your death. Will play it for you 3 seconds early, and you'll have no choice but to perform it, to match the sound, to fulfill the acoustic prophecy. She can hear it now, in echo, the sound of typing stopping, the sound of her closing this laptop, the sound of her getting in the car and driving north, 3 seconds before she does it for real. The echo is never wrong. Time's up. She's going now. Editor's note. This account was found on an abandoned laptop in a hotel room outside Fairbanks, Alaska. The room was registered to a Jenna Morrison, who never checked out. Her car was found 3 days later at coordinates matching the location of a decommissioned research station from the 1,960 seconds. No body was recovered. However, hikers in the area report hearing strange sounds, screaming, footsteps, something being torn apart. The sounds repeat on a loop, always the same sounds, in the same sequence, playing every 3 seconds. Effect, then cause. Echo, then source. Her death recorded backward into time, playing eternally, 3 seconds ahead of itself, forever.